Hospital Porter's Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order. Welcome to HPANWO TV and welcome to this, the 68th comments reply video. Reply to comments 68. And it basically does what it says on the can. It's a video in which I get to reply to all your comments. All my comments boxes are open, so you can put comments in whenever you like. I don't have time to reply to all those comments by text, but I feel obliged to reply because the people who view this video, you've taken the time to tell me what you think, give me feedback, ask me questions, things like that. It's common courtesy for me to respond to you. I'd be neglecting you if I didn't. I'd be ungrateful if I didn't. But because I don't have time to reply by text, because I don't want to sound immodest, but I get an awful lot of comments, so I make these particular comments reply videos. Now you might think to yourself, hang on a minute, Ben, this comments reply video is 9 hours long. I'm not going to watch a 9-hour video just to get a reply to one comment. Well, you don't have to watch all 9 hours of it, because every time I reply to a comment on this video, I'll put a timestamp underneath it. So, for example, when I begin, I'll say, thanks for your comment. It'll be answered approximately within the first hour of the upcoming comments reply video. The first coming reply to comments video. And that will be what I post underneath the comment I'm replying to. And after an hour, it'll go to second hour, third hour, fourth hour, fifth hour, etc. So the longest you're going to have to watch is just 1 hour to get the reply to your comment, and put it on while you're making dinner or something. Play it in the background. But you know, your second reason is right. My videos basically, they're not 9 hours long. My reply to comments videos, and I haven't made a 9-hour one for years, and the reason is I do them more often. So my reply to comments videos over the last few years have got a lot shorter. I mean, they rarely go over 3 hours now. Certainly very rarely over 4. That's because I do them more often. I do them every probably 3 weeks or so. Right, I used to do them every 2 months. Now I do them about once every 3 weeks or so. Another reason I make these videos is because these reply to comments videos is because you, the viewers, enjoy them. They're quite popular. I know. I think there's many of you watch them all the way through, even if you haven't made a comment. I think some of you watch them all the way through, and I enjoy making them too. I think they're fun. So that's why I'm doing it this way. So let's begin, shall we? So that's right, first hour. I wonder how long this one will be. So we will begin immediately with, oh my goodness, so Max Q gets in there straight away. It will be fun. From reply to comment 66. I'm on hang on, I'll just check. I just want to double check how many I've done, because I think it's 68 this time, isn't it? Yeah, the last one was 67. So this is the reply to comments video before the last one. Max Q says here, there is one difference between Viagra and Alex Jones's penis enlargement pills. Viagra works, right? Well, firstly, the pills that Jones is presenting, Alex, right? Viagra doesn't actually make your penis larger. Well, it does temporarily, but not permanently. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't like make it permanently bigger. Viagra just creates sexual arousal, sort of, or creates a spontaneous erection. Whether or not you feel horny or not, it just happens. It doesn't. There are ways and means using various treatment of actually enlarging, and it is, for example, making your actual penis larger. Not that I need that sort of thing, but I've heard that. You can make it smaller as well, actually, by the anabolic steroids that people like the fake muscle build fake muscles. They actually shrink your willy. So yeah. So if you're going to actually ruin your body by taking toxic chemicals to make your muscles bigger and hormones that improve, do bear in mind, if you think it makes you more manly, well, maybe it doesn't. Yes, Viagra works by producing a spontaneous erection. Yeah. Max continues. I thought by your comments over the prescription of Viagra might be a prescription drug in the UK. It isn't. You can buy it and other branches of sildenafil over the counter. Oh, that's what it's called. Yeah, sildenafil. I didn't know. I thought you had to go to your doctor, but you can't actually buy it now, can you? I know they use it because, well, I've heard this, but porn stars use it. Guys who do porn movies use it. They can always like have a very, very powerful erection at all times. When in fact, if you don't do that very often. You might feel embarrassed, or you might be with someone you're not attracted to and you've had trouble performing, things like that. Yes, erectile dysfunction isn't always down to a physical problem, and people could explore other avenues. However, sildenafil is dirt cheap, safe, and it works, so people buy it. Yeah, that's true. But again, whoever manufactures this stuff makes a lot of, they make a lot of money off people who might, who might have some kind of psychological issue which is making them unhappy, and the sexual dysfunction is a symptom of that unhappiness. Women get great benefits from taking sildenafil, and many use it as well as their partners. I'll leave that to your imagination. Yes, they have. It's marketed as female Viagra, but it's the same stuff, I believe. Okay, not all men who use sildenafil have erectile dysfunction. Oh yeah, it's used to treat some kind of heart condition, and they decided to use it as because apparently the erection was kind of like a side effect, and guys used to take it, and they used to suddenly find, what happening, and they're thinking, well, how did that happen? I wasn't thinking about anything that would normally lead me to that to happen. Anyway, he carries on. So why hasn't Jones been sued? To be honest, I don't know. I do know he's been ordered by the FDA to stop selling some products. Right. As far as I know, he's still selling them. The ads are still on the InfoWars videos. Independent labs have triple tested Jones's supplements, and they're on the whole substandard and massively overpriced compared to better and cheaper products available, as in his vitamins and minerals, etc. Not fairy tale penis enlargement pills and so on. No, I mean, it could be there's a placebo effect when it comes to the you take it thinking it's going to turn you into a sex god, and just knowing thinking you're taking something that will do that, it gives you more confidence with women. I'm no expert as to why it's legal to sell things that clearly don't work, like muscle bodybuilding type stuff that promises you will look like Arnold Schwarzenegger in a week. I guess there's some disclaimer in the small print. Okay, Max. Ben Goldacre, he's written a book called Bad Science, which I very much recommend. He's actually right about some things and wrong about others. And he actually, on the subject of prescription and the laws of when it comes to prescription, he's very interesting. Now he gets a lot of stuff wrong. However, he when it comes to the use of selling medicines for profit rather than or emphasizing profit sometimes at the expense of health, he's very, very good. And this includes alternative medicine as well as and he does tackle the mainstream big pharmas as well as what he calls big quacker. So if you're a skeptic, I think you'd like that anyway. Okay, Patrick Patel. We're moving on to Notice of Old Tech exclusive medical misinformation film. Oh yes, I wanted to warn you because there's a very nasty film which is lying to you going around. It's called what should I call it? Expired Without Warning. I do a full review of it, but only in Old Tech. Patrick Patel says, Ben, I'm certainly binge-watching Game of Thrones, and there's a character named Lord Varys who nearly resembles you. Him and Tyrion Lannister are my favourites. I think you could easily have been a great actor because you're quite talented. Oh, thank you. I was in a couple of plays when I was at school. We did an Inspector Calls. That's quite a common thing you study at school. I think it's on the national curriculum. I was Mr. Burling, I was. Yeah. Inspector, believe me, I would give thousands. You're offering the money at the wrong time, Mr. Burling. Lord Varys, who's this? Lord Varys. I think I've heard of this chap. Someone else has mentioned him. And they showed me a picture of him, and here we are. Yeah, I mean, so look, I'll show you him. It's probably a lot of you know what he looks like anyway, because you watch these programs. Display. There we go. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, he does look a bit like me. I see. Right. Oh, thanks. Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Okay, so we'll carry on. So I thought, sorry, Patrick, I must give you a timestamp. Oh, sorry, I got Lord Varys on my clipboard. 1 sec, there we go. Alright, there we go. So, Patrick Patel there. Kerry Woolley says on reply to comment 67, a pornographic media gov Ben A pornographic media, Gov Ben. Yes, we are being fucked. A pornographic media / Gov Ben. Yes, we're being fucked. Oh, I'm not sure what you mean, Kerry. Gov. I suppose you mean government. I'm not sure. Sorry. Oh, Hugo Rune replied to comment 67. I knew you'd be along sooner or later, and you say, happen, fourth viewer. Only 15 minutes since you posted. You have some close followers. Hello all. Hi, Hugo. I know you always get in there quickly. And Jam Noise says underneath, hey, Hugo. Hi, Soul Sister. How you doing? I loved your holiday videos. A Highway Star says on reply to comment 67. Another reply to comments which I look forward to watching. Oh, thank you very much, Highway Star. I'm glad you like them. See, some of you guys watch them all the way through, don't you? A reply to comment 67. Oh, Jam Noise has left me. Jam Noise 72 says, here is a timestamp. What's that mean? Lol, we were taking the mickey, Ben, pretending it was a reply to a comment timestamp. Oh, sorry, did you make a joke I didn't get? I was. Oh right, that's a reference to my voice, yes, because of my voice, the way it sounded then, didn't it? Yeah. All right, okay. He's not letting this get him down. He's not the type to. He's not the. All right, thanks, Jam Noise. I'm sorry if I didn't get the joke. Sorry if I didn't get it at the time. Reply to comment 67. Gary Robinson. Evening, Ben, mate. Hey, Gary, how's it going? Jam Noise 72 says, hi G. Gary says to Jam Noise, hey JM, I was just about to reply to your other comment about the bruised hands things. What a world we live in, eh? Lol. Alright, I'm a bit behind with that one as well. Reply to comment 67, Jam Noise 72, it's another timestamp here. LFMAO, Hugo, go for it, mate. Please film it for us. What's this? Hugo, you could do it that way if you want as well. Steve071 says, still, I think you're referring to the old... aren't you? Yeah. And Hugo Roos says, thank you. I will thank you for you and Ben. Oh, thank you, Hugo. Right. I mean, we were having a long conversation about the old, you know. I know that Jam Noise, you and Hugo were gonna. I think you were gonna go you were gonna roll a few joints together, aren't you? The Lights Below replied to comment 67. Hi, says, hi Gary. Is that? I think that's replying to someone I can't see. Is it? Oh, Gary Robbins underneath say, hello there, fellow tinfoil hat wearer. The Lights Below says to Gary, as a guy involved in the entertainment and music business professionally as you are, can I get your valued opinion on the McCartney fall thing? I've done a video about that. I can't see how someone would write the music, sing and play the same way in order to successfully imitate Paul. All of the 60s set would love to be in on it too. Eric Clapton to Michael Caine, David Foster, Dudley Moore. I just can't buy this one. Your view is most appreciated. Well, I don't. Michael Caine is already known, isn't he? But anyway, let's see what Gary Robinson says. Sure thing. There's no way to know for sure if the whole thing's true or not, but to be fair, there is no smoke without fire. In terms of replacing him with somebody who could write and perform his music to his standards, I can confirm without any doubt that it would indeed be possible. Major record labels keep pools of songwriters, producers and engineers on hand, most of which are more talented than the bands themselves. These people are there to provide a cache of music that can be used by the bands and the record labels they're promoting. These people are well versed in writing music geared towards specific bands and are able to make their compositions sound very close to whichever famous band requires a song. Gary, I'm gonna share this. Well, I don't have to ask your permission because you put it on the public comment, but I'm gonna share this to. I think the ladies who wrote Shadow of a Bassman will be interested in that. I'll share it with them. This is also very common in production for music for television, in which producers will often be asked to write an album in the style of whichever popular band or electronic artist is currently popular. In other words, producers and songwriters at every level of the pyramid are capable of making themselves sound like an established artist. So, if the whole thing was true, getting a regular flow of music wouldn't be hard. Sorry, this reply is very badly written. I've used the word band repeatedly. Gary, I'm not demanding you get out a thesaurus, mate. What you said is very informative. I'll make sure I share it with Anne and And what's the other lady's name? I'll share the the authors of Shadow of Baseman. The Lights Below says underneath, thanks Gary, to be honest, you have answered more there than most of the books seem to have done. Do you think it's possible the rest of the 60s set would have been fooled? That's an interesting question, Lights Below, because you remember that scene where, who was it? I think it might have been Leona Lewis or someone who said, "Hi, bye Bill," when she was walking away from Paul when he was being interviewed. I'm absolutely convinced, by the way, that Paul is dead, and that is not Paul McCartney. That is William Shepherd. I'm absolutely convinced of that. It took me a lot of persuading, but the evidence I think is overwhelming. Just let me comment on what Gary said. I mean, I know what Gary says about the music, especially when you're watching TV. Usually, it's like it's usually some kind of comedy, where you will get like music played which sounds very similar to something that's being lampooned. So, for example, you have a fictional band that is meant to be imitating a real band in a comedy, and there was this. I forgot the name of the comedy series now, but there was a band that was very obviously imitating Status Quo. And they were playing music which, although it was, of course, they weren't playing the Quo's actual music. They probably couldn't get a license for that. They wouldn't want to anyway because it's like a parody thing. They were playing. They were playing music in that style, with the staggered kind of harmonies and like the staggered rhythm, which the Status Quo always used to play. Their songs always had this kind of staggered rhythm, that kind of thing. And it wasn't one of their songs, but it had that kind of feel to it. Anyway, Lights Below goes on. We keep hearing about this guy that's won of the lookalike competition, but I have never seen an image. Who won as in, right, sorry, you spell it W-N-E. Not I'm spelling police you. I'm not a spelling police here, but yeah, I get you. There is an image. It's in the inside sleeve of the White Album. It's that little picture. I've showed it to you. Hang on, where is it? Hang on. Here we are. Here we go. Because the White Album is famous because it's called the White Album because it's called the White Album because of It's called that because, of course, it is. It's completely blank. It's a completely blank white cover. It's simply called The Beatles. At that time, of course, the Beatles were referring to themselves simply as Beatles, and there's a very interesting reason for that. But I'll see if I can download this image here. Save him. But but you see, it was a big surprise when this album came out, and there was nothing to it. Just nothing to it. It's just this blank image. But the inside sleeve has a number of it looks like a kind of like a collage of images or a montage of various images, which I'll show you in a moment. I'll show you exactly what you're looking for. The picture of what William Shepherd looked like before November '66. Okay, this is the image on the sleeve, on the inside of the sleeve. The real Paul is, you can see him in various places. Well, you can't see the real Paul because you see Fall in various places there, for example. But where's Fall? Where is the picture? Where's the picture I'm talking about here? I'll show it to you now. You have to go down here. It's not a very good quality image, but there he is there. It's that guy there. See him? You see it. It's better quality image. He doesn't actually look like this. It's actually a very, very clear photo. It's like a passport photo, and you can Google it and find it for yourself. The Digilanda Libero website has a full quality image of this. You might even know someone who actually has the album. That's Shepherd. He had black hair. He had these thick glasses. He had these typical 1960s glasses, little moustache. and that's him. So they've actually put it on the album. Okay, so where were we? Right. The light alert carries on. On a more base level, his kids do look like his younger self, with the high eyebrow on one side. Someone suggested it can't be Paul's son because he's a musical genius, which is no real proof. No, it's not. These things are not necessarily inherited. There is a guy I know who claims to be Paul's son. What's his name? I interviewed him on HPANWO Radio. And since then he's kind of disappeared. But he had a website. He had his DNA profile taken. He was challenging the family to. He was actually somebody. He was actually a posthumous birth. Paul. He was born. I think he was born like in around January or February '67. So Paul actually conceived him with his partner, this woman, who was like a woman he was having a relationship with, just a couple of months before he died, if it's true. So yeah, you have as for Paul's kids in this day and age, it's hard to say. I mean, I'll have to have another look at them at another time, but you see, it's not true. The shepherd actually does look like Paul anyway. He bore a natural resemblance to Paul, and he had a little bit of plastic surgery to make him look even more so. So it's no surprise that his children look like Paul. And he says one. So, alright, Lights Below corrects himself. Yes, one WON. I get you, Lights, don't worry. Gary says to Lights, let's say for argument's sake it was true. It could be done using a lookalike and multiple songwriters who simply sell the music to the label as a buyout. The songs could then be registered under Paul's name as the composer with the Performing Rights Society, so no one is the wiser. Well, Gary, one day they will be, and you'll get the biggest lawsuit in history, won't you? Because Shepherd has been making... How many millions has Shepherd made off Paul's music? As for fooling the 60s crowd, there could be a company in Soho called Music by Design who make high quality sound like for films, TV shows and TV commercials. So even back then it was possible to fool people sonically. Yeah. As I said, they imitated status quo type styles for this comedy series I saw. Gary Robinson says as well underneath, that being said, I do know a Beatles expert here in Mexico who has a touring merchandise collection. He disputes the theory, and despite the oddities, I have to give him some credit as he really knows his shit when it comes to the Fab Four. I know a lot of people dispute this, yeah, a lot of them really, it's uncomfortable for people to deal with, I think, because they love him so much. It's like the people who believe Elvis is alive. They don't want to face the fact that he is dead because they loved him so much, and they want to believe he's still alive out there living on some desert island under a fake identity. And Light says here, hi Gary, I really appreciate your response on this. As I mentioned, your relevant points do give a more balanced view with some interesting ideas than are ever presented in reams of rehashed play the song backwards, look at the album cover rhetoric that others put out. Well, I'm one of those Lights, but yeah. But Gary has actually, I think, given a very, very interesting input here. I think this one needs a debate between a believer and non-believer. I'm not sure I've heard one before. Thanks again. No, I have once. It was actually, I think I filmed it, didn't I? Didn't I film it? Hang on a sec, guys. I'm just. Where's the? I think I filmed it. Yeah, it was Nick Colostrum in the bookshop. Do you remember? I think I filmed it. And he gets into a debate with the guy who runs the shop because he's a big Beatles fan, and he played some of Paul's songs. He said this is just too much like Paul. This is one he did in '65, and he plays it on the piano. This is one he did in '67. You can tell it's the same guy. But that's the only debate I've seen. Yeah. Reply to comment 67, David's Blended Isolation. We love your reply videos. Thank you, David. I'm glad you do. Big Bobby Dazzler says on reply to comment 67. Race Wars, Children of Men springs to mind. Okay. Big Bobby Dazzler. Children of Men is a dystopian book by P.D. James. I've never read it, but it's there's a film made of it recently with Michael Caine about a world in which everybody becomes unable to produce children. All the men become sterile, all the women become barren through some cause we don't know about. Well, I can't say too much on YouTube, but we may be heading for that particular scenario, mightn't we, because of certain medications that have been offered to us. Okay, Gary Robinson replied to comment 67. Hey Ben, in regards to the Mexican nightclub UFO Holograms show, oh right, yeah, I couldn't find the video. I was unable to track down the video. You tried as well. It was originally posted as an Instagram story by a friend of mine. I'm not sure if you know, but Instagram stories are removed after 24 hours unless they are added to the highlights folder. It doesn't surprise me that my original content was met with skepticism. I would have reacted the same way before I saw the video in question. Cheers. Yeah, thanks Gary, but thanks for looking. But you know, I don't actually use Instagram. So I mean, I've got an account there, but I don't really put much on there. I think I put 3 photos or something. David Smith says underneath, why wouldn't they post a video elsewhere? Why can't you find any other examples of this clearly accessible technology being used in other places? Not saying you're lying or anything, I just want to see exactly what it is you're talking about, because it sounds like something that should be in lots of places, and so would be interested actually to see it. Gary says, mate, to David, if I wanted a conversation with a cunt, I would just I would have gone to the conversation with cunt shop. Oh, Gary. Oh man, I sometimes wish I was like that. I really do. I'm just too. Maybe I am too nice. Yes. I think. Oh, you two got history, haven't you? Yeah. David Smith says to Gary, your wife runs her own business when she's not doing drugs. Then, David, fuck off. I understand why Gary's angry with you now. What did you say? Your wife runs her own business when she's not doing drugs. Do you actually read what he says? That's a disgusting distortion. A disgusting distortion. I'm obviously not so nice after all. Gary says here, yeah, but business is bad since no one likes talking to cunts, but that's okay since we are fucking loaded. We can afford to sit around all day taking drugs. Gary, David, what do you expect? If you're going to say things like that about Gary's wife, what do you expect? What do you expect? You know, when you say she's doing drugs, you make it doing drugs. I mean, that's a loaded term, right? You know what's really going on. Gary has posted numerous times what he and his wife do with their explorations of using entheogens, which is perfectly in Mexico. That is perfectly legal. This is not like doing drugs actually means for most people. But you're using that term because you know it's a loaded term and you want to distort the situation which Gary and his wife do. So well done, Gary, for putting him in his place. You know, I mean, if Gary hadn't hit back at you so hard, I would have deleted that comment. I really would, because I think that's defamatory. David Smith said, "Yeah, poor idiots, lol. That'll show the NWO." Gary says, David Smith, okay, in all seriousness, I'm not looking for other examples, mate. After seeing the video, I figured I would let Ben know it via a comment, as I knew he'd be interested. Yeah, Dave, I was, Gary, thank you. And, you know, I also appreciate you telling me the story of what you and your partner and what you do in terms of your exploring your consciousness, and I appreciate you sharing that with me. I was interested, yeah, and I'm pleased. Thanks for trying to find the image and let me know about it. He carries on. That's it, really. End of story. The video was posted as an Instagram reel by a friend of mine, a young woman who's recently divorced and now travels the country taking photos and videos of herself pretending to be happy. Poor lady. She has no interest in these subjects and wasn't fussed about sending me the video after the Instagram story expired. All I can say is if you're really interested, do some Googling for hologram shows in Mexico and see what comes up. I can't do any more than give you my word that the description of my original comment is accurate. I'm not an advocate of conspiratorial hologram technology existing or anything like that, so I've no reason to dress up what I saw. That's a good answer, Gary. Yeah, I mean, I have seen there are holograms, which sky holograms can be done. It's not unknown. I mean, I've seen them myself. I said this. I told you the story about Thorpe Park, but Michael Jackson was actually recreated in another image much more recently after he died. And this can be done with lasers. It can be done with lasers. All you need is some kind of medium, and as I said, some which is basically something to project the image onto. And because it's a three-dimensional image, it's not a flat screen. It's kind of like a cloud of steam or smoke will do the trick. It's a cloud of steam or smoke will be invisible from the ground until it's lit up with the display. Can be done. David Smith. I did some Googling, couldn't find anything like what you're talking about. Gary says, I just had a look myself, and you're right, there's absolutely nothing. Tried changing countries on my VPN, still nothing shows up. I'm going to press again, see if I can get a video. Alright, well, maybe I'll check that out later. Gary, I'll have a look to see myself if I can find any. The hologram displays. Oh, why wait? Here we go. Hologram displays. I'm sure they hologram displays. Right, images. Let's have a look. There's lots of indoor ones, but what about some outdoors? Oh, sorry. Right, what's this? Right, well, all right. Well, what we got here? Have a look at this. This may be what kind of thing you're looking for. What's that? What's these things here? These are outdoors. Oh my goodness me! It's a oh, that's drones. That's just drone formations. But look. What are these? What's this? Oh, no, I'm not going there. You can find lots of images of them. Look. These are outdoors. I've heard them. I've heard they use them in some places as a sort of safer alternative to fireworks. I expect so. Is there any reason why this technology can't exist and why it's not real when we know that it all exists? Anyway, that was a good thread. That was very amusing. Thanks, guys. Gary especially. I think you gave some neat replies today. David was being a bit of a dickhead, but still, it was a very interesting subject you both brought up. So thank you. Reply to comment 67. Dark Corners UK. Funnily enough, I was just thinking today at work. I'm sure it must almost be time for a new comments reply video. Then I come home and there's one waiting for me. Oh, yeah, you're getting used to my schedule, Dark Corners, and there is one, so I hope you enjoy it. Yes, it's time for another one now, yeah. Same video, Hugo Rune. Honestly, I lived in Africa for a while. Well, more honest to say, I worked there. The oil industry needs telecoms, so in order, Nigeria, Libya, Angola. The last one was month on, month off, and my months off were in Brazil. Angola spoke Portuguese, they do in Brazil, but they spoke Brazilian, which is Portuguese, but more sexy. Honestly, Portuguese has regional accents, just like English does in their colonies. Yeah, apparently it is as with English, which is spoken in various different places. There's a lot of variation. There's a lot of dialects, lots of accents. And of course, Americans, Australians, South Africans, they all speak with a very, very different accent to us. Funnily enough, I mean, it's actually in England itself. There's probably more variety within England in terms of the strength and differences in terms of dialect than you get abroad. For example, you could travel across the Atlantic to North America and you get people who speak with American, Canadian accents of various kinds. There's several of those. Yet you go just as far as Northumberland and you come across Geordies who are they have a dialect that's so strong that when it's spoken at full strength, it's effectively a foreign language. Some linguists actually classify it as a different language, as they do Scots, as a fourth Invionic language. That's what they call it. They don't call it Geordie. They've got a posh name for it. But if you go to places like in the Caribbean, you get various kinds of patois, which are very hard to understand. Yeah. So yeah, some interesting stuff, and it's the same with other languages, because Portuguese, of course, is an international language. Lusophones, they're called. The people who speak Portuguese are called Lusophones. That was an interesting word to say. But there's probably dialects within Portugal as well. Right. Hugo Roon replied to comment 67. Wormholes, sorry, only in fiction. Well, if you're right, Hugo, maybe you're right. I know you have your own version of this, so maybe you're right. But I'm referring to the paper. What's his name? Was it somebody Rosen and Einstein? Right, here we go. The Einstein-Rosen bridge, the wormhole. It's a speculative structure connecting points in space-time based on solution of Einstein's field equations. Wormholes are consistent with the general theory of relativity. Whether wormholes actually exist remains to be seen. Yeah, there you go. It's not. We don't know they exist. They exist in theory. Theoretically, a wormhole might connect extremely long distances, such as 1 billion light years, or short distances, such as a few meters, or different points in time, or even different universes. Because they exist a lot in. Of course, they do. You do actually. In Nathan Rosen, that's it. Albert Einstein and Nathan Rosen. Yep, Nathan Rosen was an American-Israeli physicist. Yeah, who worked with Einstein on this thing. Yeah, so they published a paper at some point. I think something in 1920 something where they talked about it. So it's not only in fiction, I'd say, Hugo. Fiction has borrowed the idea from science and has basically picked it up and run with it. You get it in films such as in Star Trek, in Doctor Who, in Contact and things like that. David Smith says, "Where do worms come from when it rains then?" Well, actually, David, they a jam noises posts a laughter thing. Worms come up from the ground because when it rains, for some reason they tend to come up to the surface. Maybe because they're scared of drowning. I don't know. Yeah. The Lights Were Low says, talkative woke. Why haven't they made Charlie's Angels male? Whoa, well, that would be sexist, wouldn't it? It's like if they had Mr. Marple instead of Miss Marple. Because everyone would go, everyone would grind their teeth and groan if that ever happened. And I'd be one of them. Mr. Marple, imagine that. Just imagine how pathetic that would be. And but of course, it's like many things in wokery. It's one-sided. It only goes one way. So you're allowed to culturally appropriate white people and white roles and things like that, but not the other way around. I think I'd hate it in both directions. Dark Corners UK says underneath, I still think after the sad passing of Chadwick Boseman, they should have made Black Panther a white guy. Oh God! It would have been worth doing just to take the piss. I would have said do it, yeah. But of course, it would make the film even worse. It would make the sequel film even worse than it actually was. And Jam Noise laughs at that. The film, as you know from my review, the second Black Panther film was pretty lousy. It starts off so well. The first 5 minutes are great, and then it just goes, it collapses. Because they just bring the stupid plot to that disclosure moment in the postscript of the first movie. Oh, by the way, T'Challa he reverses that. He just says, no, I'm not going to do that after all. And pathetic. And he conveniently dies. So that's it. No more disclosure, guys. Wakanda stays secret. Really, that's really, really bad. David Smith says, because there's already a plethora of male-based movie franchises. Is that a reply to... David, actually, believe it or not, I agree with you. I actually agree with you on that. There are many movie franchises which are what's the word they use? Male-centric. Masculine, based with male characters. And that's the way it should be. If those characters are male, they're male because they're meant to be. The Ghostbusters are meant to be men. Things like that. In the same way that the Golden Girls, of course, were female. The Golden Girls was a great comedy series. Actually, it's unlike most American comedy. It's actually quite good. It features. It's about a group of elderly women, and it's actually pretty good. But if they brought in a man to be part of the central cluster of characters. It would ruin it. It would destroy it. It would trash it completely. So, David, unusually I agree with you on that. Reply to comment 67, the lights relay. On BLM, great new documentary about the billions they raised. Look it up. I haven't seen it, but I've watched Sargon of Akkad talking about that, and it's disgraceful. Oh, it's unbelievable. All these woke actors and actresses who gave money to BLM, some of them are demanding their money back now, because the lady who set up it was her and another woman who set up BLM. They went and bought a bloody mansion with the funds. And what's more, it's not like they've done it secretly. They've made a video of themselves in on the patio by the pool with this great big tower, this massive luxury pile behind them, and they're sort of having a slap-up meal of posh food and like really expensive wine and stuff like this. And mate, they've done it openly. They've made a bloody video saying, "This is where your donation money's going. Cheers!" And they're basically saying, "Up yours, suckers." That's what they're basically saying. You gave us this money, we fooled you, and now you've got this. You now have this is what we've done with it. That doesn't include how many millions Soros and the Bill Clinton Foundation gave them. So I'm not seen the documentary, but I have. I've watched Sargon's video about it, and yeah, these actors and actresses, they want their money back now. I'm sure that they may well succeed, but what about all the ordinary people who donated? They're not going to get anything back, are they? I mean, what will happen is if you try to get money back, someone will accuse you of racism, even though this is blatant fraud. This is blatant misappropriation of funds. Yeah, but they say, "Oh, but you're racist if you do that." Oh, I say if anyone donated to Black Lives Matter and you realise what this lady did. This supposed devout Marxist who believes in championing the poor and building a socialist society of equality and stuff like that, who now lives in £1 million mansion, I just say, look, lesson learned. Don't make that. Don't be fooled again. I think that's all you can say. Hugo Roon says in reply to comment 67, football rabbits headlights, not me. All right, what's this? Okay, I think this is a timestamp. Hugo's doing his usual dissection. Talk about football or put football on the TV, and then that's it. We're like hypnotised. Oh, it doesn't work on everyone, Hugo. It doesn't work on everyone, but it works on most guys. 67 Dark Corners. Ben, mate, over the past few weeks, there's been a significant number of so-called angel sightings popping up on social media, usually originating from Latin America. Admittedly, some of them are more convincing than others. Do you have any thoughts or theories on this phenomenon? Perhaps this is a sign of an impending apocalypse. I saw that was on The Darkest Secret, wasn't it? Now she's actually, I think, Leonora Clay. She does. I'm Leonora Clay. This is The Darkest Secret. And she's got such a sexy voice. Do you know the one I mean? She makes these brilliant paranormal videos, and a lot of them are about angels appearing, usually at churches and things like that, but they appear in lots of other places as well. And yes, whether the actual occurrences of angel sightings is increasing, or whether they're just being reported more and more, I don't know. It could be if it's just Latin America. I mean, the lady Leonora, I think, is Mexican. But so she focuses very much on Latin America, actually, South and Central America with her videos, even though she speaks English in her videos. However, it's a global phenomenon, angel sightings. Different cultures have different names for them, as I explained in my video on this subject. And that's the point. When it comes to angel sightings, would you include mine? You must have seen the video. It's quite recent. If you watch my channel regularly, you'll see it. It's the Angel of the Outer Limits. Have you seen that video? Where I describe what I think is my own encounter with an angelic being, a benevolent supernatural being, when I was in Hull a few months ago. Whether it's a sign of an impending apocalypse, well, I've made a video all about the apocalypse too. Could be. As I say in my apocalypse videos, an apocalypse is not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, it may be a necessary process we have to go through, in which case this is something we should be pleased about. But anyway, check it. If you've not seen Angel of the Outer Limits, check it out. Steve Mumbling is here. Oh, I've got Steve Mumbling. I'm going to enjoy this because Steve puts a lot of comments on this time, and yeah, I've had a bit of amusement with Steve lately. Right, reply to comment 67. Indiana Jones and the Regency Commode. Is that what it's called? It's a steaming pile. Is that the title? Hang on. Indiana Jones 5. Is that actually? It's called Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Oh, it's got a name now. They've decided on the title. Indiana Jones on the Dial of Destiny is an upcoming American action-adventure film. All right. They're kind of they're actually doing it like contemporarily with the age of the actors. So basically, it prevents problems like with having actors with the wrong age. This is now kind of the late 60s because the last Indiana Jones film was set in the mid 1950s. So they're now in the late 60s because it's like 14 years or so later. I will go and see it. Yes, I will go and see this definitely. I mean, you know what? I've never seen The Last Crusade. I've never seen Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Oh, they filmed some of it in Glasgow. Look at this. This is actually a shot from where they were filming. This is in Glasgow. I think it's late 60s. They're celebrating the moon landings, and obviously they're going to green screen these modern buildings out, and anything else that doesn't fit into the time period or indeed the location. But they've got lots of old American cars and things. Also, they have to get rid of these modern cars and things. But yeah. I'm reading from Wikipedia. That's obvious. So right, yeah, I'll anyway. It's not called the Regency Commode. It's called the Dial of Destiny. The Regency Commode. Indiana Jones and the Regency Commode. That's not a bad title, Steve. You know, it could be that they'll do they will actually have an Indiana Jones in the past. You know, maybe they'll send him back into the past in a time machine to the 18th century, and they could actually have some secret amulet or something could be hidden in a sewer pipe under the Prince Regent's house or something. I don't know. Anyway, it's a steaming pile, he says. You keep saying there's tangible evidence for ET craft crashes, yet present none. Oh yeah, I keep saying there's tangible evidence for ET crashes, Steve, but I present lots. Let's see what you consider to be the most convincing example. The most convincing example for ET crashes. Not Roswell. Not Roswell. It's probably, I mean, you won't agree. It's probably, in terms of evidential weight, if you don't include Rendlesham Forest because that wasn't a crash, but Virginia. For 9/11, I've done an entire video about 9/11. I mean, you often ask me questions, Steve, and challenge me on things I've already explained to you in the various videos I've made. Dr. Judy, you say Wood, I think you mean Dr. Judy Wood. Dr. Judy Wood keeps referring to empirical evidence. This is someone's opinion based on what they see. This is nothing like tangible evidence, which will prove an argument. Well, the book there's a large textbook. Where did the towers go? It has a scientific thesis within it, which includes evidence, which has evidence. Andrew Johnson's website is called checktheevidence.com for that reason. Giving me science fiction answers to questions and arguments is not you winning a debate, Ben. That's you imagining you've won a debate. Well, I'm not, Steve. I'm really trying. I don't think I'm giving you science fiction answers. I'm addressing the points you make. So, and if you don't have a reply to me, that is winning a debate. David Smith says underneath, there's a video on it, Steve. What more do you need? David's being sarcastic there. Reply to comment 67, Steve Mumbling. My take on the NIM logo. All right, so Steve's got another video here. Have I watched it?
Oh, hello again. I was watching one of our
That's only 6 minutes long. Let's have a look.
tinfoil hatters yesterday, Mr. Emlyn-Jones, who got really quite excited about this logo
All right.
for the Office of the Director of National Intelligence.
I did, yes.
And it's the National Intelligence Manager Aviation.
Correct.
And what he was excited about was this logo.
Yeah.
And what he was particularly excited about was the flying saucer.
Well, it does make you wonder, doesn't it? It makes you wonder what it's doing there with all the
So I'll have a
thing.
quick look at this, because he didn't say what the provenance of this logo was. Whether
Did
it
I
was
put a
posted
comment on
by
here?
them
Oh, I put
or anybody else.
Hang on. Oh, I've already put a comment on there. I don't know what you mean by excited. I was curious, but you really didn't say anything I disagree with here. Oh, right. All right. Jones should not be looking at things with national intelligence in them. Very funny. Your ramblings of a madman. You don't have to live up to your name. Yeah, I've already seen this, Steve, and I put a comment on here. You say you didn't really say anything I disagree with. Okay, so there's no need to watch this now. There's no need to watch this. It's only worth watching if you say something I disagree with. So I'm not exactly sure what I agreed with you on here, but anyway. Thanks for that, Steve, for your input there. Oh, I've got to give you a reply. A reply tag. There you go. Okay. David Smith, Alternative 3. Oh, Alternative 3. That's quite something, isn't it? Alternative 3. Yeah. Artemis 1, Tommy Time Television. Ben, do you think the government agency NASA and the super rich like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos know the end is coming, and that is why they're so keen to set up a base on the moon and Mars? Oh, right, yeah. David, yes. Alternative 3 is it? I think it. You know what? It came. It was 1976, I believe it was released. It was not long before Star Wars. But if you've not seen it, it's on YouTube. You can go and watch it. It's a fake documentary. It's one of these things that you watch it. A lot of people. It's like Ghost Watch. You watch it and think it's real. Then you look. Oh God, it's actually not real. It actually has some people. Some of the cast are actually quite well known actors. There's Richard Marner, Shane Rimmer, Shane Rimmer's an American actor who is very, very often in British things, like he's in James Bond films and things like that. Very often in British productions. But when I watch, it's very, very vivid. It's very well done. It's actually it's not unlike Ghost Watch. It's very well put together, and it's about some investigative journalists are trying to track down some missing scientists. And no one knows where they've gone. They just vanish. They walk out their house and then they fly off somewhere and they go. They leave their cars behind and everything. And it turns out they're actually being sent into space to basically secret space program type bases. Very interesting. Well worth watching. Very well worth watching, David. Yeah. And I can't remember. Is it because the end is nigh and they're going off before the are they going off somewhere before the axe falls or something? I can't remember. I have to watch that again. It's good. It's quite funny. Jamnoy72 replied to comment 67. Ben, using the AdBlock extension on your browser. It's free. Thanks, Jamnoise. But the problem is, it's tempting to use it, but I'm trying not to. I'm trying not to be tempted, because that just encourages various websites to put up more paywalls, and I don't want that. I'd rather this stuff was free access. So I'm not going to use. I'm going to moan. I will moan continuously about it, and you'll go, Ben, stop moaning. You could use an ad block if you want, but that's probably how it's going to carry on from there. But thanks anyway for the advice. And we have Gary Robinson on reply to comment 67. Ben, mate, those unhelpful changes to the YouTube interface are most likely the result of developers having to work with a messy code base that's been hacked together by multiple developers over a number of years. Yeah. You know what they say, a camel is a horse designed by a committee? I worked as a web designer for almost 20 years, and I would often be asked to work on websites that had been bodged by multiple people. That will make it impossible to update the layouts and styles, because instead of removing unused entries in the style sheets, most developers would create duplicate entries for colours, sizes and positions of objects on the page, etc. As more and more conflicts when added over time, it would make it impossible to implement clean updates, and your only option was to add more bodges, hacks, and style conflicts. When working for new clients, I would always recommend they let me rebuild their website website front end from scratch. Many companies would refuse, which resulted in the work taking much longer. I would imagine working on a car, for example, and needing to replace the exhaust, but being told you have to fit a new one and keep the faulty one in place. Cheers. Gary says underneath, PS, so my point is that working in this way results in small, pointless and unhelpful updates, like the recent ones to YouTube. Well, thanks for letting me know, Gary. That explains a lot. And you'd think in this day and age they'd find some way around it. It's one of these situations like where you see, the NHS is full of things like this. You think, so why the hell are they doing that? What's the point? It's one of these situations where very often it's the people with the least power within an institution, the people who know what the right decision is to make, who are not allowed to make those decisions. Because this is appointed to managers, people who seek authority and therefore are not so interested, not so invested emotionally or professionally in the service they're a part of. I'm afraid I don't know what the solution is to that. I really don't. But thanks for that's very interesting. Thanks for letting me know. Oh, Gary says here on the same video, it's 67 again. In reply to the guy who left a comment saying that he felt relentless gender swapping in Hollywood films and TV was nothing more than an innocent trend, I can say without a doubt that it's not. Yeah, I agree, Gary. A large number of key people who hold positions within Hollywood production companies and studios are openly woke and will often air their SJW philosophies on social media. Oh, tell me about it. Tell me about it. I think I might have tried watching Rings of Power if it hadn't been for the open statement among the cast and the crew and the production team, saying quite clearly, it was not so much the cast, it was the production team, but the cast obviously have the right think when they're hired. We want to get Tolkien out of this. They actually said it. We want this racist old white English dude. We want him out of this franchise. They've said it literally. I mean, it's like the Harry Potter people are saying, get rid of J.K. Rowling. She's a thought criminal. Tolkien created this franchise. You can't get rid of him. I know these bastards have been circling Christopher Tolkien like a bunch of rainbow-striped vultures just waiting for him to pop off. He finally did in January 2021. And they said, right. Because Christopher Tolkien has been an absolute stalwart defender of his father's work. He died finally in, January last year at the age of 95, I believe. And these vultures descended on him. And they descended on the whole thing. As it happens, they haven't got all their way. As I've explained, this is just glorified fan fiction. But yeah, it's they're very open about. They're quite open about their desire to basically to deconstruct everything and rebuild it in their image, which is disgusting. Which is why I'm boycotting Rings of Power. As you are well aware, mate, the whole situation is now completely out of hand to the point where many of the studios are reportedly running out of financial steam. That's a good point, Gary Robinson, because I've seen many sort of black pillars going, oh God, oh no, they got woke and they didn't go broke. Well, they haven't yet, but you see, they will eventually. I mean, I think a lot of, I've said this before, a lot of people attribute almost magical powers to the bad guys. They're omnipotent. They can just the laws of economics don't apply to them. They apply to everyone else, but they don't apply to them. They do, and eventually, they may not go broke immediately because they have a massive amount of reserve capital. They have huge savings. Yet, if they're making things and people aren't watching them, if people are not going into a cinema and putting their bum on a seat and buying a ticket, or if they're not actually watching they're not watching the Netflix. They're not watching it on Netflix, and therefore the advertising revenue will then dry up because advertisers will not be willing to use it. They're not willing to, because advertisers fund this damn stuff on Netflix. They're not going to bother because there's no one watching it. Things like that. It doesn't matter how powerful these bad guys are. They're going to run out, as you say, run out of financial steam. Disney have recently fired their CEO Bob Chapek because he had fired a number of key woke staff members who were running woke activist groups that were actively attacking Disney and Lucasfilm, whilst each of its members drew a salary from them at the same time. Oh my goodness! Have we got a civil war within Disney? That's what it sounds like. Oh, that's the end of an hour. I'll finish Gary's video, and I'll finish Gary's I'll just finish Gary's comment, and then we'll take a break. Essentially, it sounds like they fire one guy fires the wokies and then someone fires him. It sounds like the idea of some kind of conflict here, doesn't it? Yeah. I'm sorry to say, it looks like the Indiana Jones will indeed be the latest victim of this gender swapping trend. It's been confirmed that young Indy sacrifices himself in the end of Indy 5 in order to save Phoebe Waller-Bridge. The results in old Indy fading away. The audience are then presented with a montage of scenes from the original Indiana Jones trilogy in which Harrison Ford is replaced by Waller-Bridge using CGI, of course. The bottom line is that no one has the answer as to why the studio bosses go to work every day and allow this to happen, despite seeing their movies flop time and time again. Cheers. That is, Gary, that's very sad. I mean, if there's any hint that that's going to happen, I'm not going to watch it. I said I would watch it, and I'm not going to. If that's the case, which I will be able to find out before I go and buy a ticket. But it's at the end of the day, Gary, it's up to them. I mean, they're going to have to learn from their experience if they won't learn from our advice. And despite all of the black pillars going, oh no, they got woke and they haven't go broke, I think those people are going to be proved wrong, because you're inevitably going to go broke if this happens. And I think that is the only thing that's going to turn this around. I mean, if this last Indiana Jones film flops in this way, I think is going to be. If that's not a major turning point, I don't know what will. I mean, we've already had Ghostbusters rejecting this whole woke stuff, because the latest Ghostbusters film actually rejected the original female. I think the female one was so awful, and it was just a horrible idea that shocked them. That shocked that particular team into changing their policy. And the rest of the movie industry, if the rest of the movie industry doesn't follow, then there's not going to be a Hollywood. There's not going to be cinemas. There's not going to be films made. It's simple as that. Future productions depend on the success of the productions in the current era, the current cycle of movie releases. All right, guys, I'm going to take a break. But back, we'll go for hour number 2 in a second. Okay, guys, back with hour number 2. Gary Robinson has a little PS here again to his comment he made earlier. P.S. The all-female Ghostbusters movie has been decanonised and was not featured in the 30th anniversary Blu-ray box set. Cheers. Excellent. That's good news, Gary. That's another sign that, sanity, up the pall of insanity is perhaps lifting and some common sense is getting through. David Smith says underneath, it was me. What was you? What do you mean by woke? Oh, right, I see. This is what the guy who left a comment that Gary mentions. What do you mean by woke, and what were the activities they were engaged in? As far as I can see, this is all just money related. The industry wants to try and get more females to enjoy more movies by appealing to characters they can identify with more so than perhaps a male can. When the movies fail to yield returns, then they will stop doing it. I really don't see anything getting out of hand. Well, what you said at the end is absolutely true. When the movies fail, they'll stop doing it, and that is now actually happening. But it kind of disproves the beginning, doesn't it? Because they want to get more females to enjoy movies by appealing to characters they can identify with. Yet, women, obviously, plenty of women watched the Ghostbusters movies, the original Ghostbusters movie, which had an all-male central cast, and they enjoyed those because the men were the right people to play those characters. Those characters were meant to be male. And obviously the women enjoyed that factor in the same way that I enjoyed the film Zulu very much indeed, and part of it was because the Welsh soldiers were white and the Zulus were black. You see, you could easily say, well, why shouldn't the Zulus have been white? Have a few white Zulus in there, so those are characters I can identify with. No, I don't want to identify with characters who are just exactly like me, if they're not meant to be like me. I did identify with the Zulus. I mean, what I like about that film is it is about how you can get into conflict with others, even very violent conflicts, and yet not lose your humanity. And if Zulu actually did that, which you are meant to identify with both sides in that particular film, which tells the story of a major battle. So in that case, you're kind of contradicting yourself here. Females are not enjoying these movies more. They're not identifying with the characters more. And therefore, this is why they're failing to yield a return on their investment. The box office, a lot of these films are indeed not. They're not breaking even. They're not getting the box office takings they need. And so it's not getting out of hand, except this is the only thing that's stopping it getting out of hand, I think, David Smith. BZ Garson says underneath to Gary, what's your definition of woke? And David Smith says to BZ Garson, at this point, it seems to mean being accurate about the history of Western civilization and not believing in conspiracy theories. No, the exact opposite. It means about being inaccurate about the history of all civilization and all of the human race. It seems being inaccurate to the point where you can imagine that an African woman Elizabeth I was an African woman. That's what it means. Or somehow, in ancient Rome, they had female warriors who could beat the strongest men. That's what it means. That's the opposite of accuracy. That's inaccuracy. That's fantasy. Anyway, Gary doesn't answer these questions here. He is not posted again on this thread. But so I'll give you my definition of woke. It is basically, as I described before, the cultural Marxist kind of psychological warfare attack that's we've been subjected to. Woke is is these various kind of gaslighting, confusion-inducing messages that have been put into the media. That's what it is in a nutshell. I'll go into more details in my BBC talk, but that's basically what it is. It's incredibly destructive to our culture, to our psychology, and it's meant to be. That's the whole point of it. It's meant to break us down at that level. So that's my definition. Gary can answer for himself. Moving on, Gary Robinson says here on 67, Ben, I'm not sure if you've heard of Alpasoni, that's Alpansoni, but I guess you could say she's a bit like yourself and Mark Devlin, for example. She used to hold Sadhguru in high regard, but not anymore for obvious reasons. He seems to have been got at. Yeah, Alpasoni, I've heard of Alpasoni, I've heard that name. I think it may have been Mark Devlin who talks about her. Alpasoni, but let's just Google her. Here we go. Alpasoni. Oh, she's got a YouTube channel. It's looks like an Indian woman. I don't know much. She's been on the Mark Atwood show. Right, good. Okay, I'll look that up. But yeah, I mean that Sadhguru guy when he was at the WEF. Giving it, oh yes, people, there are too many, this is a guy who's supposed to be some kind of wise spiritual sage, and he goes, people think there should be more people, I think there should be less people, I want fewer people in this world. Yeah, you're in the right place, mate. They want fewer people as well. What does that mean? Well, we want fewer people in this world, but, well, I'm sure there's nothing really sinister about that, is there? I mean, how do you just how quick? I can't say too much on YouTube, okay? But if you want fewer people in the world, how exactly do you go about doing that? How do you go about reducing the number of people in the world? Just ask yourself that question. Steve Mumley says on 67, Jarrah a PhD in physics. I really don't think so. Didn't he take something like 12 years to get a bachelor's? He is a PhD, I believe. I mean, he did talk about this. He did mention the course he was doing. He's now Dr. White. He's Dr. White. So I think he said something like that. I don't know. I think it was astrophysics, Steve. He was involved in. It was astrophysics. Like Megan Hewell, he obviously has the opposite opinion to her when it comes to the moon landings, but he's basically astrophysicist. David Smith says underneath, I'm not one for arguments from authority fallacies, but it's funny how this was mentioned as a point that was scored, yet a plethora of people in relevant backgrounds reaching a consensus that goes against a conspiracy. Must be fake, wrong, just info, or conspiracy itself. Well, David, that means basically we're both making the same point kind of thing. it's in a sense that's just basically whataboutery. You're admitting that you have a bias in the same way that I do. My challenge, though, is to try. I do try to overcome that, but I thought it was worth mentioning because people, you see, I don't go to Ben Goldacre and say, well, this guy's just some nutcase off the internet who never went to school or something like that, who failed everything at school. Okay, never said that, which is why. This is why if someone said that, you might bring up the point he actually has a medical degree. And he is a journalist in the field of medical science. Okay, so I wouldn't have mentioned the fact that Jarrah has this education if someone else hadn't come along and just called him a foolish tinkering nutcase, which is what you guys do. That's not a quote, but you say these things about him, which is why this is why I happen to mention that. So, in a sense, it is a point scored because I'm just correcting you on your own ad hominem attack against him. Max Q says underneath, see my reply to Ben above. It did seem rather far-fetched when Ben said it. 12 years to get a BSc, wow. It must be a world record, Steve. Well, Max, you don't know how much time has he been in and out of university. He's had other things to do. He's been looking after his grandmother. It can take a long time to get there. I mean, sure. I mean, you think to yourself, well, how long's he been at university for? He's a bit old for that sort of thing, isn't he? Things like that. But people do. You get mature students who can't necessarily take their exam straight away. They can't necessarily study full time. David Smith says underneath, bronze swimming certificate. Ah, David, you're a Red Dwarf fan. That's good. UFO Disclosure 2022, UAP report delayed. I've got Tad Majurkin saying, I don't know what that says. There's something, it looks like it's Georgian or Armenian. It's not English. I don't know what that says. Anyway, it's a strange word in some foreign script. 67 BZ Garson. There was nothing androgynous about Charlie's Angels, pal. Did I say there was? I think the movie was a bit. The original TV series wasn't. They were very feminine, Did I say that it was androgynous? Maybe I said that about the film. I don't know. I can't remember the film very well. BZ Garson says here on 67. Hi Ben, I had a nice chat with Jarrah White, and despite you saying he is not Dr. White, what you said, he's not Dr. White. Okay, Mr. Alright. Well, if I got that wrong, I'm sorry. Mr. White has neither a PhD or doctorate, he has a BSc. To put that into some perspective, he would have to study full-time for at least 4 years to get either a PhD or doctorate. They're not the same thing. Anywhere from a third to half of these who enroll at a PhD or doctorate at university will not end up graduating and finishing their dissertation. In fact, the figure of 40 to 50% of failing PhD or doctorate students has been fairly stable over the past 3 decades. As you might have gathered, you have to be either the best of the best to get either a PhD or doctorate. Okay, if I got that wrong, I got that wrong. I thought I remember him saying that. Maybe it was the Mandela effect. I don't know. Maybe there is a Dr. White in a parallel universe. Either way, that's a long comment to basically explain that. But yeah, maybe it's the thing is, I mean, I made no secret about it. I have no real education. I have a GCSE in English. I've had no education since I was 16 years old, which is when I did my exams. So there. Tessa 1111 Silent Night Watch Party introduction. Tom Courtney was the only good thing in the Golden Compass. I mean, to be honest, the book, because I'm a big fan of the books, I thought the film was a bit of a disappointment. Although it wasn't a bad effort, but it sort of is a bit truncated. It kind of ends very suddenly without a real conclusion. And if you read the books, you'll know the story continues in the first book. For another, it's called Northern Lights, the book. It continues for there's a little bit more story. So the Northern Lights book by Philip Pullman is far better put together than the film. Also, there was no sequel. I thought this is obviously going to be the first part of the trilogy. They're going to have another film, The Subtle Knife, and then they're going to have the third film, The Amber Spyglass. It's going to be like a box set and everything. Because no, the project was cancelled, which is an enormous disappointment. Silent Night Watch Party introduction. Martin Taylor says here, a bit of slap and tickle, whip and shackle. Can't be much of a silent night with all that debauchery going on. God, yeah. I mean, that's probably the title. It's not the best title in the world, actually. It's probably not the best title in the world. I'd have called it, I don't know. What would I have called it instead? I have to think about that. Fletch says on the same video, downloading the movie now. Never heard of it. All right. Well, could you download it? I mean, I know you can watch it. I don't know you could. I think you can watch it streaming. I didn't know you could download it. But anyway, I hope you enjoy it, Fletch. And we have replied to comment 67. Right, I've actually got into a text conversation with the lights were low. He says, "Hi Ben, can you give me your take on Miles's comments on HPANWO Radio 485, where he suggests the world's nuclear submarines aren't actually powered by such and haven't been since the 60s. Instead, he says a form of free energy that would allow an aircraft carrier-sized vehicle to move to the other side of the Earth in an instant. Apparently, they simply ask the crew to go below decks and then they go. I admit even your reaction was slightly taken aback. Miles seems like a nice and very intelligent guy, but he sees a conspiracy in everything, just saying." And I said to Lights, I'm about to make a video on that very subject, and then Lights and I did email each other about it. I have, it's called the Pylon Hoax. 67, David Smith. What's wrong with immigrants coming to the UK? That's an example of right-wing rhetoric. You keep saying about the replacement conspiracy and make immigration seem scary, so why is that exactly? To me, immigration stems from people being dissatisfied in their own country and losing hope of changing things locally. It's why some people move from North England to the South. Do you have a problem with that too? Perhaps they're trying to turn all us Southerners into Northerners. Oh my God, that would be a nightmare, wouldn't it? None of this requires a conspiracy or New World Order, just capitalism and mass inequality. That's it. But if you've labelled those issues as woke, then I'm sure that's some great propaganda they've pulled on you. Right, first of all, right-wing rhetoric, that in itself is rhetoric. But in the end of the day, I think the solution is actually, in the long run, funnily enough, I find myself almost agreeing with you again, is to create a world in which there is a high quality of living across the world. And funnily enough, that doesn't mean, unfortunately, this is where I disagree with you. I don't believe capitalism is the cause of that. I'm not a socialist. I don't believe capitalism is the cause of mass inequality. If anything, it's actually the other way round. It's actually hyper-regulation, it's state mandating, it's state interfering into the economy and into society generally that causes this mass inequality, basically because they want mass inequality, because for that reason. You've got to realise that, yes, some people do move from the north of England to the south, but have you ever known a time when the entire population of Manchester will head for London within the same year? Because that's what we're seeing here. This is not just people making a decision to move to a better part of the world. This is organised. This is organised by people traffickers, and I've got to ask myself, are the government actually funding them? They've just been to Albania and they've just said they're going to they want to help the Albanian government or stop the whole thing, but really, you've got to ask if it's the other way around. I think I've addressed the rest of what you said really before. But generally, you're right that the long-term solution is to improve the quality of life across the world, which, as I said, capitalism is not to blame here. But that can only happen, I think, in a post-Illuminati world. It's the Illuminati, the deep state, are too hell-bent on messing with people to the point where they will agree to things like this. Charles Scott, all right then. What's this? Is this? I'm only going to read this because you have actually put something new. I'm actually planning on making you the star of this show, Charles, because you have, yes. You're now bringing up the whole thing about. Let's see. Is this the new thing? You said you tried to demonstrate how easy. This is right. This is Charles talking about the outer limits thing again. to demonstrate someone to fake what I'm accusing you of. You emailed me the Chris Evers Stripe account screenshot with your email address replaced with the words "Hi Charles, took me 30 seconds." And you said to me another 5 or 10 minutes and I could have got the font just right. I said this wasn't fabricating the screenshot because you had used an email address and get font size, spacing, etc. correct. So it did not look out of place from the other email addresses. On the 8/11/22, my goodness me, you're keeping a logbook, Charles. This you really are. I asked you to use a fictitious email address to use instead of "Hi Charles, took me 30 seconds," and you replied saying you used Windows Paint. On the 16/11/22, I asked you if you'd managed to fabricate the screenshot. You replied saying, "Not yet, Charles, I'm doing other things." On the 23/11/22, I emailed you. Part of it was, unfortunately for you, Ben, despite you saying it's simple to fabricate using Windows Paint, you've proven yourself it isn't simple. All right, how do you then? Charles, you try and falsify your own hypothesis now, all right? If you're a real scientist, if you're really interested in logic here, how you try and do it, or how would I go about it? Okay, so steel man your position. Come on. How would if Windows Paint is not the software? What should I use instead? If you're not willing to answer me, then maybe that's because you don't want to, because you know that I could, in fact, fabricate that image. In fact, if you've accused me of fabricating images twice, actually, and I'm going to give another example. I know you deleted the comment, but I have a copy of it. Remember, I get email notifications. Besides which, even if it was a real Stripe account, okay, how come I never got the email? I never got the email from Chris. All right, of course, and I sent you a similar kind of evidence as Chris sent me. And you know what you did, Charles? You said you accused me of faking it. Did you not see the contradiction in your own position here? All evidence is against you. No, it's not. Now, although your screenshot was the only evidence supporting you, overall the screenshot evidence against you is harder for Chris Evers to fabricate his screenshot. Really? It's harder for Chris Evers to fabricate his screenshot. Why is that? Why is that, Charles? They're both screenshots. My screenshot, the evidence supporting me, you have dismissed. You said that would be very easy to fake, yet you claim that it will be difficult for me to fake the one Chris sent to me. I do think you saw the ticket invoice, and I do think a sane person would not overreact by lying, and more importantly, dressing in disguise as David Jones to get your own back on various OLM people, as well as showing good order could not be maintained by your presence. Well, you see, you're making now an assertion, and I presented you a reason why that's not the case, and you're saying, no, I still think you saw the ticket invoice. I didn't. I'm going to tell you I didn't. I presented you evidence that I did, and you're rejecting it. You're saying that it's fake. At the same time, though, Chris Evers has presented evidence to say that he did actually have me down on the list. For some reason, even though he's, as I explained to you, he's on my contact list, I received no email from him, despite 3 emails asking for a ticket invoice. You then say, no, this time he's telling the truth. The evidence, the screenshot he said, is real. To date, you have not emailed me a successful fabricated screenshot. I insist you're a liar with a suspected mental illness and a noxious side to your character, because the factual proof and factual evidence leaves me virtually in no doubt. Right, so like I said, Charles, steel man your position. How would you fabricate that shot then? Come on, let's have you. I told you, I haven't finished with you, Charles. I'm going to make you the star of this particular video because you've said a lot of other things, and I'm going to come to those comments in a minute. Andrew Munchkin says on Pylon Hoax, he just gives me a thumbs up and a smiling face. Thanks, guys. Pylon Hoax again, new video. Rick Horden, windmills are fiberglass reinforced polyester epoxy resin. Oh, goodness me. That's what they're made of, yeah. And Trevor says, oh, Pioneer Spirit. Hi, Pioneer Spirit, how you doing? I see them as a real eyesore. They are, and they're more than an eyesore. If you're a bird or a bat, they kill you. And they produce infrasound as well, which causes some people to feel ill, confuses ducks when they're navigating, things like that. And as you said, fiberglass reinforced polyester epoxy resin cannot be recycled, and it's not biodegradable. You're just burying these things in the ground. Because they don't last that long. I mean, people say they last 30 years, but some of them last just a few years. They can never be a replacement for fossil fuels, which is why they're being used. Everything that could never replace fossil fuels is allowed, because technically they're free energy, aren't they? Because the energy comes from the wind. But there's such a high maintenance cost, and there's so many moving parts and things like that need to be constantly checked over, and things like that. Engineers have to go up there. Again, the wind, they have to account for the fact that the energy is not a steady state. They have to have storage batteries and things which don't always work. Things like that. It's not allowed because it's free, because it doesn't work. It is allowed because it doesn't work. Same with nuclear fusion, but that's a story. I've talked about that before. Pylon hoax, Graham Park. I welded one in Germany. We are making it bigger. Oh, really? Well, Graham Park then says they switched it off, and after a couple of fellas went home sick with COVID. Oh, right. That's another reason, isn't it, Graham? And Jam Noise says, loving the jazzy tune. Oh, thanks. It's great. I always put credits for the music I use at the end, definitely. Lauren Thompson says on Pylon Hoax. Hello, Lauren. You're new here, I believe. Interesting. I laugh with my boyfriend about flat Earth. And little does he know I have questions about the globe, and I haven't found a satisfactory answer, to be honest. Oh, right, you haven't. As for the jet fuel hoax, I think there might be something to it. Do you know what I've done? I haven't started the bloody clock timer. I'm just going to have to just use the clock on here. I'll just keep a very close eye on the clock on OBS. Idiot. I didn't start the timer. Okay. As for the jet fuel hoax, I think there might be something to it. How in the heck can liquid fuel be stored with the wings? In the wings, it doesn't make sense, but clearly fuel is needed for when they take off and taxi. I don't know. I think it would be quick to dismiss this pylon hoax. I wouldn't be quick to dismiss this pylon hoax either. Well, Lauren, if you watch my video on jet fuel hoax, I do explain why I think it's not true. Now, generally, I've made more than one video addressing the questions about the globe. I'm not one of these people who just goes flat Earth, get out, blocking you and things like that. If someone believes in flat Earth, that's fine with me. I know I have friends who believe in the flat Earth, as the saying goes. But I'm willing to get into a rational discussion with people who believe the Earth is flat. Same with the jet fuel hoax. Now, the pylon hoax, I suspect, is not really true either. But I find it much harder to dismiss, including the nuclear submarine thing as well. I can't dismiss that as easily as I could the jet fuel hoax. But thanks for your comment. Welcome to the channel. Right, Hugo Rune says on the same video, I am 1 minute in and already paused to make a comment. I was an engineer, telecoms, not power, but it's essentially the same. So I'm looking forward to this. I just wanted to comment before watching it. Spliff in the ashtray. Oh, we're in for a treat. I look forward to Hugo's future comments. Pylon hoax pioneer spirit. Around 2016, I had a dream Trump was in command of an aircraft carrier, and he was at war with Putin, who was in command of a submarine. The dream ended with Putin sinking Trump on his aircraft carrier. Oh, that's a strange one, Trevor. Here we go. Hugo Rune is right now. There's now a timestamp.
Carries a charge. From the ground upwards, it increases by 100 volts for every meter in height. That is cumulative if grounded. This energy can be halved.
Oh, what's this? Okay, Hugo says, I was not surprised. I was expecting it to charge. Yeah, that's it's interesting, because the static electricity can be detected around these power lines. Yeah. Hatchy says on Pylon Hoax. Oh, Ben, when do the public wake up? Our education system is certainly messing my children. 1,000 pupils in my school at any one given year in my secondary education years. Now there's 500,000 coming across the channel in rubber dinghies in 1 year. Am I missing something? Ain't things changed since KBS? Ben, things will not end logically. Respect yourself. We're up shit creek without a paddle and a race of people. One couldn't make it up. Might be time to review the Magnificent Seven on movies and the morals of tyranny. Lots of respect from old Hatchie. Here, 30 Hornets wipe out 3,000 bees in 3 hours. We might need Yul Brynner and Steve McQueen and the boys. For some balls, ain't much left, out there but words. Something will have to give. All part of the plan? Question mark. Oh, actually, yeah. I mean, you bring up a lot of topics there. The Magnificent Seven. Yeah, I've got to watch that again because that was actually quite a good film, if I remember. The famous Western. But yeah, there's the Wild West is full of stories like that. You know, High Noon, and High Noon is a good film about the sheriff who stands up to the bad guys. Yeah, but as for the children, I'd homeschool your kids, mate. I would. I mean, if I could go back and if I went back and knew what I know now, I'd have homeschooled my daughter. Yes, as I said earlier to someone else, I think David Smith, those coming across the channel. I mean, it's 500,000 people. It's not just you get that many people. That's 500,000 people. So, I mean, as someone said, that's the population of Liverpool that's moved into the country in just a few years. Or in 1 year, sorry. That's not done just spontaneously. That has to be organised. As for KBS, well, it's almost a year since we lost Kev, and it's about a year ago I did my last show with Kev, actually. There is going to be a 1 year anniversary tribute, which I'm involved in, yeah. As for how things are going to end, I don't know. But up Shite Creek without a paddle, it feels like it, doesn't it? But you never know. I mean, it was revealed on the viewing figures that more people now watch the most popular news channel on, I forgot what day it was GB News, which of course is very anti-establishment. So that's Neil Oliver, of course, has his monologues on there. So that's cause for hope. There's many other causes for hope. There is a plan, and we'll have to wait and see if it comes to fruition. Hatchie, there are no guarantees, but I think we shouldn't give up. Pylon hoax, no one's flower. But Ben, you never addressed, as you said you would, the measurement of the curvature of the 25,000 mile circumference sphere that would prevent many line of sight observations that are made. I think I did. No one's flower. I have addressed the flat Earth thing. I've done at least one video about it. It was originally a live stream. I just decided to pretend it wasn't, but I never edited it. I did demonstrate actually more recently in my Streetcar Named Stargate video the curvature of the Earth myself by looking at the offshore wind farms near Blackpool. I mean, there's a scene in there. So in what way haven't I addressed it? No one's flower. I envy your eloquence. Oh, thanks, No one's flower. I'm glad you appreciate me. I do, and I'm glad you enjoy this video. And Last of the Wild Men says on Pylon Hoax, NZ citizens, pride and dignity, stop the New World Order. New Zealand, alright. Incidentally, Ben, it will be 10 years this 21st of December 2022 since you did your Mayan end of the world prophecy, December the 21st 2012 midnight video. Unlike the year 2000 with Y2K hoax, nothing happened. Our researchers like yourself already knew this would be the case? Question mark. Well, there's no question mark, but I think you mean to put one in. You put an ellipsis instead, which is kind of the same thing. Last of the Wild Men. You're right. You were the first person to know this. I am planning a live stream for Wednesday, which is the 21st of December, as a 10-year anniversary to the whole Mayan calendar thing. I'm also uploading a lot of stuff to Rumble right now from that year, so my catalogue is going to go onto Rumble as well. And you can watch them anyway on BitChute and Odyssey, the whole thing. I've edited them together into a single video. So yeah, stay tuned, watch this space, as the saying goes, because I'll be doing an entire video about what you've just said here. Michael Snow, Pylon Hoax. It looks weird without Didcot when you go past Oxford nowadays. Well, yeah, the big cooling towers are gone because Didcot has gone fully gas fired, as per the net zero thing, which does change the landscape. Those cooling towers in the flat landscape around there stood out for miles. They're gone. They've been blown up. And yeah, it's the gas fired. The gas fired. It's rather like they have these turbine exhausts, which are like these little things on the ground. They don't have the majesty and grandeur of the cooling towers. So I know what you mean, Michael Snow. Yeah, and then Michael also says here on the same video, I saw new pylons by the M5 not long ago. They look weird, like a diamond shape. Yeah, there are new ones coming out, despite what is in the video that I talked about in this video. However, Michael, they are actually not very. They actually look very much like the wind turbines. They appear to be very similar in structure, probably made of the same troublesome materials. Yeah. Pylon hoax, ground cloud. Ben, what's the name of the music at the beginning? It was great, and I did actually explain here. It's called Little Lily Swing by Tritachyon, and as always, I credit the artist at the end. So check that out, Ground Cloud. UFO Disclosure 2022 UAP report delayed, and we have the Crafty Nihilist. Hello, Crafty Nihilist. Ben, it's you, me, and a bottle of Prosecco, and a large tub of cream and Christmas tree. Yay! Mark's out watching grown men kicking a ball about. He can fend for himself. Crafty, enjoy the video. There'll be another UFO Disclosure video coming at New Year or soon afterwards. Dark Corners UK says on Silent Night Watch Party introduction, Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Not really. It's set at Christmas time, but like Eyes Wide Shut, the Christmas is not part of the theme. And we have a thread here. Oh, quite a long one on Pylon Hoax. Steve Mumbling says here, the power generators in naval vessels use pre-formulated amulite, just like the Rockwell Retro encabulator. I don't know what's that? Oh, we have some video here, right.
Here at Rockwell Automation's World Headquarters, research has been proceeding to develop a line of automation products that establishes new standards for quality, technological leadership, and operating excellence. With customer success as our primary focus, work has been proceeding on
what does this do?
Now, basically, the only new principle involved is that instead of power being generated by the relative motion of conductors and fluxes, it's produced by the modial interaction of magnetoreluctance and capacitive directance, effectively prevented, in conjunction with a drawn reciprocation dingle arm to reduce sinusoidal depleneration.
Right,
the retroencabulator has now reached a high level.
Right, Steve, I don't know what any of that means, I'm sorry. But, okay, so the power generators in naval vessels use these. Okay, pre-formulated amulite. Well, I said it's not something that it's an idea I was entertaining, not necessarily accepting. Max Q says, hey Steve, what do you think of the Tesla delivering their semi-trucks to Pepsi Cola, etc.? Is that real world enough for you? Oh, so that's what Musk's latest thing, is it? Steve says to Max Q, Musk did not take any questions at the end of the event, which sparked some skepticism over the vehicle's capabilities. Reuters reported Oliver Dixon, a senior analyst at consultancy Guidehouse, told the news agency this was not very impressive. Moving a cargo of chips, average weight per pack 52 grams, cannot be the way to be said is definite proof of concept. We'll see. All right, well, that's interesting. All right, Max Q, I'm not going to read these out, actually, because this is Max, basically, and Steve are having a discussion about something it's basically about Tesla and their contract with Pepsi Cola and things like that. Okay, guys, do you mind if I don't read this out, because there's nothing really here I'm glad if you want to talk about it, that's absolutely fine, but it's not relevant really to this sort of thing. But thanks, Steve, for the information at the beginning. I'll look into. I didn't really understand it. It's obviously designed for people with technical knowledge. Okay, so I'll leave it at there. I can't really contribute to that particular thread. Oh, we have now Finer, Healthier Life, says on Pylon Hoax. I've just seen a Dave Murphy video about the Pylon Hoax. And I actually said under here, Dave's an old friend. We used to do Critical Mass together. I'll have a look at his channel. So let's have a look at. I'm going to have a look at Dave's channel. I've not actually seen Dave's work for a while, but of course we were old colleagues on Critical Mass Radio, so let's have a look to see if I can find his channel. I did do sub to it, but Dave says Dave Murphy Flat Earth. Yeah, he's one of the biggest flatheads in the world, actually. Where is it? Oh, for God's sake! No, this is bloody YouTube. YouTube search is completely buggered. It is. I mean, the algorithms don't just like stop you seeing inappropriate content. You know, they actually I was googling Michael Schratt the other day, right? Michael Schratt has a YouTube channel. He has alt tech there. He has a lot of material on alt tech as well. And the entire first page was just like news stories about completely irrelevant things, or just very vaguely attached, very vaguely connected things. So, for example, the first one was a CNN 5-minute piece about John Lear. You search YouTube for Michael Schratt, and you get like the first is a CNN 5-minute like basic news story about John Lear. Here's Dave. This is allegedly Dave. I found his channel. Here we go. Let's have a look. Yeah, Dave and I were both on Critical Mass Radio a long time ago. I'll just put in Pylon, see what I get. No content. Okay. This is his channel. Common law. All right. Yes. This is actually. I think this is David. I was at this conference. I think.
Oh right. Yes. Yeah. So yeah.
Oh, 1 year ago.
It's literally a legal term for giving away your property. And
that's
now,
Dave. Yeah.
Like you no longer.
No, it's not. But he did many. I was at a conference with him. It was I was at one of the CMR conferences. Yeah. Pylon. Anyway, I've not heard from. I've not had anything to do with him for ages. We haven't fallen out. It's just we've gone a different way. All right, guys. So thanks, Finer Health. It's good. Thanks for reminding me about Dave. Hope he's doing all right. I don't get angry with people who. I don't get angry with people who think the Earth is flat. I mean, that seems a strange reason to actually get angry with you, unless you're one of these people who gets angry with everyone, like Richard D. Hall or Andrew Johnson. Of course, I won't go on about that, but I'm gonna have to stay out of his way after what he said and what he did. If he comes near me, I tell you, because our paths will cross at some point. But if Andrew Johnson comes near me, I'll show him what a bloody blessing is. I really will. Let's move on. I don't want to get bogged down in my resentment. Claire Ray Randall interview, Deeper Gender Issues. This is a new video. How am I doing for time? Yeah. 39 minutes. Okay, so that's good. I'll stop just about 5:02. Crafty says, Deeper Gender Issues. Crafty Niles, Deeper Gender Issues. Ew. Jam Noise says, haha. Cosmic Claire, who is Claire Randall. I'm try listening to it, Crafty. This all needs to be discussed, and there's also plenty of mind control and the new age. I agree, yeah. I don't think Crafty was being serious, and I said it's the best title I could think of at the time, not what you might think. Claire says it's good and original choice. I'm quite happy with it, as some of these issues are indeed much deeper than we're hearing in the mainstream media. That's right. And Crafty, of course, was just making a joke, which is fair enough. Okie dokie, says Claire. It's hard to tell online. Dark Corners UK says, got to admit it, I was a little put off by the title initially, but I was just glad I decided to watch the conversation itself. It was extremely insightful. Excellent work. Thanks, Dark Corners. Much appreciated. Same video, nothing as it seems. Thermoclines. Well done. Did you ever play Scrabble with Mr. Baker? Apparently his mum, Pearlie in Fort Augusta, Scotland, kept him on his toes. No, Kevin, I never played Scrabble. No. I met Kev once. I met him, and it's filmed. It's on my channel. But yeah, he may well have played with his mum. Yeah, he may well have played with her. She's a lovely lady. She is, his mum, Pearlie. Claire Randall interview again. David, just David, capital letters. Ben, get your landlord to sort out the damp in your flat, pal. You don't want to be breathing that shit, pal. All right, thanks, David, but that's now not a problem. It needs painting over. But the patch, you mean, is now no longer damp. It's been sorted. Pylon hoax Gary Robinson says, evening, Ben, mate. Very interesting. I've not heard of any of this before. An off-topic question for you, mate, but have you watched Graham Hancock's new show on Netflix? It's called Ancient Apocalypse, and it's essentially a mainstream-friendly compiling of his lost civilization research and theories. I haven't yet, I haven't actually watched it yet, Gary, but I intend to. It's had very, very good reviews, very good reports, and also the wokies hate it. It's The Guardian have already made a hit piece calling it racist, white male supremacy. The thing is, they see that in a bloody test card, don't they? And they see that sort of thing everywhere. It's the ultimate, if you've got a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I ended up watching a video earlier that was suggested to me by YouTube, in which a young lady, who I believe is some kind of academic, spends 40 minutes quite viciously attacking Graham and accusing the show of focusing on theories of Atlantis, which is completely untrue. Gary, I'm sure Graham is very used to that. He's had that his entire career. She spends most of the video doing a hideous fake laugh in order to make the audience think she genuinely finds the show funny. What I found scary was that pretty much all of the comments on the video were from people accusing Graham of being being a white supremacist and racist. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. That Guardian hit piece on him, which, as we know, is something the academics and woke people do when they come across someone they disagree with. Exactly. It's the perfect way to, it's the perfect way to demonize a person, and it's not working as well as it used to. I think this magic is wearing off, as they say, because it's so overused and misused. There was also a comment from a guy who was very proud about a 5-hour documentary he's making on the history of racism in the USA. Oh, that's not that damn thing with. Oh, it's with Deborah Lipstadt, is it? Well, I think I know what that is. He went on a rant accusing Netflix of being racist because they asked him to cut his documentary. They cut his documentary to an hour and a half. If anyone wants to watch that kind of rubbish. There were also people complaining that Graham Hancock's son is the head of new programming at Netflix, and they believed that it was unfair that this was how he landed his show. Is that unfair? They do it all the time with their people. They put their sort of like political comrades into positions of power everywhere, who then filter all the stuff that comes in, and they put up the stuff. This is basically what Twitter was doing, wasn't it, before Elon Musk went away and threw out all the dead wood? And they complain. You see, it's so hypocritical. If that's how they feel, then they need schooling on how the entertainment business works. Ben, mate, when is woke going to F off? Cheers. I think woke is already effing off. Because, honestly, I watched Sargon of Akkad. He did his podcast of the Lotus Eaters. He did like a special program on ancient apocalypse, which I haven't seen yet. But I know it's got Randall Carlson in. I'm familiar with the theories because Randall and Graham have been talking about it on the Joe Rogan podcast for a long time now. But they did a thing because they did a whole. They took down this ridiculous racism accusation, basically. They took down the whole thing very effectively. So, yeah. Okay, now going on to the next comment. This David Smith says on reply to comment 67. Oh, it's a long one. What's this? Here we go. Right. Sometimes the local authority won't house homeless people if they insist on continuing their addictions and refuse intervention treatment. This is because the places they give them end up in a state of disrepair that costs them more to fix. David, I know that. Look, I've made an entire video called "An Argument with a Homeless Person," which actually does strike back at this idea that all homeless people have to be sanctified, and they're just simply victims of evil white male patriarchal heterosexual oppression and all this sort of thing. I've made an entire video about that, so I know that. But they could. It's just still. I just think it was odd that they, with literally overnight the problem was solved. There were only like a handful of. I think there are about 5. Is it said someone quoted 5 to 8,000 people regularly sleep rough in the country? They were all put into hotels literally overnight. Didn't last long, but I'm not saying that's a long-term solution, and everyone deserves that either. I spent some time talking to the local homeless, and many preferred the freedom of being on the streets. If they were offered accommodation without stipulations, then I'm pretty sure most would take it, but that's the difference. One old guy would simply refuse to give up alcohol when offered a 2-bed house. Sometimes people aren't ready or unable. It's not just all because of immigrants are coming to the UK. Yes, David, I know, and I should have clarified in whatever statement I made you're referring to. But I've done an entire segment actually on this, which I've done an entire video called "An Argument with a Homeless Person," where I go into this in more detail. We take less than most European countries too. I know we do, unfortunately for them. Italy, Germany, France are in a terrible state because of this. David, one world government is bad because, question mark, it will never happen due to the huge differences in culture, like Arabia, so I'm not sure what you're scared of. Yes, it will if those cultures can be destroyed, David. And a one world government is a terrible thing. I mean, it's a one world government would have nothing to temper its abuse of power. It would literally have such a monopoly of power that it would do what it liked, and no one would be able to stop it because there'd be no one else with any power in the world. The UK is pretty authoritarian and is thanks to successive right-wing governments taking away rights and protest and copying more of the USA with less human rights and trying to force us into private healthcare. I wouldn't say, you used the term right-wing, but I mean I wouldn't say that. I would say successive right and left-wing governments have done that. I call it the uniparty, the monoparty, the sort of the regressive centrists like Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak. But apart from that, you're right. As for private healthcare, yeah, they're trying to the NHS. I think I'm not going to go into the NHS now, but I'm not one of these NHS worshippers. But at the same time, it's terrible the way it's being degraded. It's killing more people than World War II right now. It's highly capitalistic propaganda and externalities of a failed monetary system that allows for politicians and businesses to take advantage of these situations. And that doesn't mean I want what you or someone like Stefan described as communism. All right, Stefan Molyneux, I take it you mean that. Okay. See, I don't agree with everything on Molyneux, what Stefan Molyneux says. I've made an entire series of videos called blah-de-blah-de-blah, a reply to Stefan Molyneux. I think I've done like about 7 or 8 of them. You can check them out. But he's decided, I think capitalism has had a very bad rap lately. And if you watch, for example, Molyneux's debates with Peter Joseph from the Zeitgeist movement, I think he's very, very clear that we've got to stop this idea that human greed is a natural part of our nature, and the state is needed essentially to protect us from ourselves, which I think is the fundamentals of Marxism. Although the Marxists would hate me to say that, that's what it is. So I'm not. If I called you a communist earlier, and you're not, fair enough. I apologise, but I think maybe more private enterprise is necessary in this. I mean, maybe I was talking about libertarian capitalism, not corporate feudalism, because those two are often confused. And it's like if you read Ayn Rand's books. I know they inspired Molyneux, Atlas Shrugged, especially, and The Fountainhead. Where are we now? I want what has been shown or can be shown to actually work for us: free healthcare, adequate housing, healthy foods. These should be basic necessities. Do you agree? Yes, I do. It surprised you I said that, didn't it? But I do agree with all those things. Quote, but who will work, unquote, is a common retort. Oh, yeah, and it's nonsense. Both left and right say things like this. And it's wrong. We know who actually really doesn't want to work. Why is it that people who are unemployed are so miserable, especially men? Why are they so miserable? Why is it that when basically the number of people employed is virtually proportional to job vacancies? When job vacancies go up and unemployment drops, they're inversely proportional, I should say. Yeah. When job vacancies go down and people get made redundant, things like that, unemployment goes up. This idea that there's this massive underclass of people who just, what is it the phrase, sit around watching TV and swigging special brew, like you can afford special brew on the dole, is a myth. It's an insulting myth, and it's an insulting myth that is tackled by many, many people. It's been repeated by several politicians in the recent era, like Norman Tebbit, who horrid little twat he was. But it was demolished many, many decades earlier by George Orwell in his Down and Out book. This was in the 1920s. The unemployment monster doesn't exist. It's simply a creation, or it's a hysterical creation. So that surprised you, didn't it? I agree with you on that. Like you so often say in your videos like that, There are entire books on that. They show what is possible and how we could achieve a better system than what we have now. Not perfect, just better. Yeah, basically. You seem to have a knee-jerk reaction to calling anything different to an NWO conspiracy, which only serves to prevent and stifle progress. You've been convinced to fight against good ideas that would benefit you by rich conmen like Trump and Boris. No, I don't think that's fair. I don't think that. Funnily enough, that's the only paragraph in your entire comment I disagree with significantly. I don't have a knee-jerk reaction. I think it's a reaction. It's a calculated, rational reaction. I don't consider Trump a con man. Boris is. Well, Boris is not evil like some of them, like Starmer and like Biden and the others, and Clinton. But he could have been the British Trump, but he lacks the maturity. He lacks the courage. He lacks the self-discipline, which is basically the source of his betrayal. But Trump is different, and I'll explain why. And I don't think I don't believe that the good ideas he puts forward, I'm not fighting against. David Smith says on 67, when it is pointed out that there is no good evidence for the holographic plane, you dismiss facts about how Navy ships are developing laser weapons, require huge amounts of power and space for a single beam that can't be seen with the naked eye in most cases. Well, lasers can't be unless they strike a medium. As for the Navy ships developing laser weapons, do you want to see videos? They've got them. They've done drills where they shoot down drones. As for where we go, yet a comment from a watcher about having seen a video someone else recorded you hold up as proof. You have a bizarre test for what's rational. I don't hold it up as proof. What video have I ever? I suppose you mean a Skywatcher. What video has a Skywatcher ever sent me when I said this is proof? Because I don't remember ever doing that. David Smith says here as well on 67, during your comments with a skeptic, it sounded to me like you didn't own them at all. It just came across they realised you weren't rational and so disengaged. They made valid points. Well, feel short. If you want to take up the debate, carry on. If you want to pick up the mantle and carry on the quest, go ahead, David. I'm all ears. And this competitive approach isn't something to be lauded. If aliens are visiting Earth, I want to know about it. Finding out what is true is always the goal, not owning someone else. I know, man. It's kind of a bit of flippancy on my part. And it's only generally say it when other people kind of say the same thing. It's like with Bowler Hat Man, I sort of say things, I whopped him, I punned him, I thrashed him and things like this. It's because he uses the same combative language. That's all it is. It's nothing. Let's have a look. Okay, got 5 more minutes. Then I didn't use the timer, did I? I did put the bloody timer on. I cringe a bit whenever I hear you talking about people you've not been getting on with, suggesting that if there is a problem at one of the conventions, then you could both go outside. To be honest, look, David, I just can't. It's just I suggest it as an alternative to this internet bitching. That's all I'm saying. Alright, I'm just saying, someone comes at me on Facebook and says, you're a fucking servant of the mainstream media, okay? Any coward could do that, and just say this stuff to my face. It's so juvenile, it's so effeminate, and I get it all the time, and I just can't bear it. I'm not saying I'm not a violent person. I just can't. I'm just explaining. It's my way of illustrating how it's a bit of a hyperbole. I'm not going to break any laws, but I just say, can't we do this in a more civilised, gentlemanly manner? I'm no fan of bullies. No, I'm not either. But besting someone in fisticuffs who you've had an issues with proves nothing of merit. I never said anything about fisticuffs, did I? I just said let's have a gentlemanly discussion. Fisticuffs was your words, not mine. It perpetuates a might equals right attitude, which I'm sure in almost any other context you've been equating to some sort of Orwell New World Order conspiracy. I can't stand bullies either. And, I'm not suggesting that, I don't like the idea when people will initiate force or violence against somebody who is weaker than them physically or less able to defend themselves. Which is what bullying is by definition. I hate that. It's disgusting. It's inhuman. So I don't know. I've never suggested that at all. I really haven't. I've just suggested that people And some people, I mean, you know, there's many people far worse than Richard D. Hall. I mean, Richard, you know, Richard is not really the problem here. There are people I've had to call the police to because of the things they've said about me. There's years and years of obsessive campaigning against me. And when these are the people basically I said meet me in Watford, and they never turned up. This is all I'm saying, David. I mean, I just can't bear it anymore. Got another comment from David here. 67. Some of your suggestions about increasing equality sound a lot like socialism. Or do you have a free market solution that somehow prevents inequality happening on such a scale? In what way would a free market counter the impact of billionaires hoarding wealth, for example? Well, firstly, we say equality. Equality does not mean everyone's the same. It means that what I suggest is increasing equality means everyone has a reasonable standard of living, not an equal standard of living. A reasonably good one. That's what I'm saying. Elimination of poverty. The elimination of poverty is not the introduction of what the wokers call equity. That is, everyone exactly the same, on the same level. The class, the society that Karl Marx mentions. That's not what I'm suggesting. See, billionaires hoarding wealth. Again, you see, I don't have the answer right now. But billionaires hoarding, you see. Is billionaires hoarding wealth really the cause of poverty? Is it really? Because when people are poor, you know, they're not customers. So it's in the interests of these billionaires who hoard wealth. They can hoard even more wealth if it's in the interests of rich people that there are no poor people as well. You know, the economy is not like some cake and everyone gets a slice of it, because there's a finite amount of economic growth and everyone gets like a little slice. No, it's something that is. It's actually infinite. You could have infinite growth. Old Molly, he does a good video about that. I don't remember all the details. A recent front page was talking about how white people in London were now a minority. Complete scaremongering that the alt-right laps up. They fail to mention the actual percentages because that destroys the story and outrage. The alt-right laps up. Yeah, it's actually English. It's actually British people who are a minority. That's true. The white people, I think, are like still 60%. The thing is, like, of all the white people in London, about a third of them are from Eastern Europe. So technically, London is no longer a British city in terms of its population. Now that does concern me. I don't think it's racist or xenophobic to say that. But I don't feel outraged. I'm not angry with. And I know that both the left and the right in politics will exaggerate and massage statistics for their own purposes. I know that. This is why I don't believe every single word any of them say. But those statistics I believe are correct. They're from I think they are from the Census Bureau. You seem to fit your conspiracy beliefs around the facts rather than letting the facts shape your beliefs. I don't think so, no. I mean, I have a bias, just like you do. And I think I could accuse you of the same thing. But I don't believe I tried to work against that. The news reporting the missiles weren't Russian. Then it must be the NWO suddenly wanting to get rid of the Ukraine president. No, they don't want to get rid of him. I think they've had to rein him in a bit. But the news reported the missiles were Russian initially. No good evidence required, just conjecture and supposition. It's the evidence is basically. I don't know what I'm there. All I am seeing at the moment is news reports from a media that, by its own admission, the government has actually used its own agency, the Office of Communications, to ban us from hearing the other side of the story. We're not allowed to hear anything except Ukraine good, Russia bad. That's all. I mean, I do watch RT. Of course, you can never completely censor things, but by withdrawing RT's license from mainstream TV, most people won't bother. Rationality isn't simply saying what you believe to be true and listening to claims, Ben. I know. I said this in my skeptic video. It's like a constant shifting of goalposts, which I know you accuse skeptics of doing. Oh, so you have seen my skeptic video from Sufon, yeah. If there was a gap, mistake or error in any official version of events, then you claim it's evidence of a conspiracy. But if the counterclaims about holographic plane technology don't hold up, you just wave it away. Well, firstly, I don't wave away the claims. I mean, I study the claims and see if they're real. There may be another side to the story. I've seen Dr. Judy Wood doing debates with people who disagree with her. Does that count as looking at the evidence on the other side? But you see, the mistakes can be made in the news. I know that. There are errors that can come about. Okay, journalists aren't perfect, but when Jane Stanley stands in front of a building which she says has just collapsed, or that the news they report that a missile comes from Russia, when they've got no reason for saying so other than this mad gangster who's God knows what he's doing, sitting around in a brown t-shirt in front of a green screen, says it's Russian, then what am I supposed to say to that? How am I doing for time? Right, and that's good timing because I'm just over the hour, so maybe I don't need the countdown timer, but I will use it next time. On to the third hour, ladies and gents. Oh, remember to start the timer this time. On to hour number 3, guys. So we just had David Smith leave me. He's left a lot of comments here. So now we've got another one now on 67 again. Which skeptics are afraid of an afterlife or aliens visiting the Earth be true? All the ones who have the MBA. Basically, I haven't actually developed I don't think I've developed an award system for people who don't believe in aliens. And maybe I should do. I mean, alien scientists would get one, definitely. Richard D. Hall would probably get one. But lots of the skeptics. A lot of skeptics are. Let me think of some. Susan Blackmore, I think, is one of them. Richard Dawkins, Marcus Dusotoy. All the people basically I've given MBAs to. I've made videos. They're afraid of an afterlife being true. Or do you refer more towards the down-to-earth conspiracies? No, not really. No, I mean that is specific to that issue of the afterlife. I think. I personally have never met a skeptic who fears any conspiracy theory, and I myself would love many of them to be true. Really, which ones? I've met quite a few. I mean, I don't know, because I met many, not necessarily skeptics, but they're just people who are afraid of several conspiracy theories. And to be honest, I understand why. There are many that I wish were not true. There are many, and I've covered them in my videos. There's many I wish were not true. On the other hand, I see conspiracies and paranormal claims as being a comfort for many. Someone you love dies. Of course, it's nice to think you'll see them again. David, are you after the NBA too? You see, I think you're sort of. This is the end of the comment. I mean, it's quite a short comment, but yeah, you see, you are sort of heading in the direction I was going in my skeptic video talking about the MBA, the Materialist Bravery Award, because of course you go on and saying, but it's not true. But I understand why it's a comfort for many. That, in a sense, my question would be, well, why do you think it's not true? And you'll say, why? And you'll say, well, and in a sense, sets you up for the MBA, because you could say, well, I'm superior, I don't need that. You see what I mean? So I think I think you understand what the second half of your comment indicates. You actually understand what I'm saying. So it kind of answers the question you ask in the first stanza here of your comment. And we have now, I think this is David again. David, you're very vocal this week, I'll tell you. With regards to people like to Kanye West and BLM. It is the case that slavery in recent history has been largely whites enslaving or taking advantage of black people. I think in the United States, yes, but the United States is not the rest of the world, not the whole world, and I think a lot of Americans don't quite understand that. A lot of Americans seem to be quite insular, and I understand that they are geographically and isolated, and that recent history has a knock-on effect on people who are alive today. That way of thinking may have changed somewhat, but racism still remains, and that's what the BLM, in my opinion, is trying to address. We already know white lives matter. That's part of the inequality. Most racism negatively impacts black, not white people. No, I don't think that's the case. Of course, racism remains. I mean, you meet them all the time. You see them all the time on Twitter. They just go to #KillAllWhiteMen, and you'll see them. But and BLM is not trying to address that. I think what BLM is trying to do is raise money so that the dedicated Marxist socialist who started it can buy yet another big house. She's got several now. It's also, well, that's how she's been drawn into it, but it serves a larger cultural and strategic psychological purpose. But most racism negatively impacts black, not white people. The thing is, some people claim that racism never impacts white people, which again is not true. So I dispute that completely. So when someone in a privileged position like Kanye wears edgy shirts or says stupid things, it doesn't disprove the historical facts or current situation. It's not. He doesn't know. I mean, he and Candace Owens are not the only source of this. It's not them alone. They've made a brave stance in this to counter the mainstream propaganda, but it's not. That's not all it is. He's merely perpetuating the conservative myth that people get what they work for, or people get what they deserve. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, etc. Oh, well, that's not a complete myth. I know it's not true. I mean, I know it's not 100% true. I believe that what some people say when they say that is that's the ideal world they'd like to live in, where hard work is rewarded. I'd like to live in that world too, and I know that's not always the case. For 23 years I was a hospital porter. I was not rewarded financially for what I did. Absolutely I was not. We actually have NHS staff striking at the moment for that same reason, because they're not receiving the financial reward they need, or the financial payment for the labour they're selling. And I support those strikers 100%. So it would be a myth if anyone says that's the world we live in now and you've got nothing to worry about, and so it's completely just. There's nothing wrong with it. Just work hard and you won't have any problems. Okay, I don't know many people actually believe that, so that is a myth. I'm not sure it's a conservative one, but that is a myth. And I don't think Kanye is actually perpetuating that. And the idea that Get Out or any other film is woke seems comical to me. And I've tried to explain why I think it is. Have you seen Blade? Yes, I have. Vampire movie, very good. I've never watched that and assumed black people were all vampire hunters. Only Wesley Snipes. Or that Blade Trinity, when they introduced white cast members, was just racist trying to push their white agenda. The idea is nonsense. I've not seen the sequels to Blade. I thought the original Blade was excellent. Very good zombie movie. Not zombie, vampire movie. But I've not seen the sequel, so I can't say that. But if they've introduced white cast members to replace the ones that were black, then I'd be very much against that. I think if, for example, Snipes couldn't do the job because he was not able to take the role, then I think they should have another black actor doing that character. I think they should. David Smith says on 67 here, Mr. Trump. My Trump comment was to highlight how it's impossible to disprove the conspiracy. You'll just refuse to accept anything that doesn't support your belief. I don't think so. I mean, I do try to make my things falsifiable. He says it's unfalsifiable. Well, it is. I mean, if I, for example, highlight some kind of UFO video and you can prove that that's a weather balloon, I'll say it's a weather balloon. That's my point about conspiracy theories. They require closed minds to some degree, some of the time, which is often the opposite of what conspiracy theorists think they are. Well, there are closed-minded people in the conspiracy sphere, but I don't think I'm closed-minded. I don't know many people who are. Take global warming, for example. On the one hand, you have multiple lines of evidence, all confirmed via study and consensus by the examination of the world around us by scientists of various fields and disciplines, some completely unrelated, which all converge to give us a picture of human-made climate change we have today, scientifically proven, with some pretty accurate predictions confirmed. Well, I don't have time to go into the details of that, David, but it's not the case. It's not the case. It's true that this is a scientific consensus in many fields, but scientists don't live in a world where we can draw perfect circles of rationality and logic. Other forces are at work, such as peer pressure, the desire to earn a living, the desire to pay rent and things like that. This is exactly what you're doing. Is a variation on what you accuse Kanye of doing, saying that's all right, just work hard, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's the world we live in. It's not. Okay, that's not the world we live in. And like I said, the conservatives you talk about, if they believe that, they're wrong. But if you believe that science is just about logic and rationality, when I say, well, science should be about logic and rationality, but it's about politics. This, what the scientific world, the world, the environment, the intellectual landscape in which scientists have to operate is not. It's about politics as well. It's about money. It's about power. And logic and rationality can be distorted for that reason. Now, on the other hand, you have some claims about free energy, NWO control, wokeism, government taxation, or some other related conspiracy. Don't include taxation, that's not a conspiracy. None of them refute the evidence, because if they did, they would become the new consensus. My claims, well, you guys refute the evidence. What are you saying? Sorry, I don't quite understand. None of them refute the evidence, because if they did, they'd become the new consensus. I don't understand that sentence really based on the. That's a bit of a non sequitur. But I think what you mean is none of my claims refute the evidence of this. Well, I'm entering into dialogue with someone who wants to refute the claims. You yourself have made a lot of refutations on this particular video. That's how science works. You can't hide reality. Oil companies would have done so already, and yes, that would be a conspiracy, but a very down-to-earth conspiracy, much the same as tobacco companies not liking information about their products, causing cancer coming to light. No pun intended. I'd reviewed the film Merchants of Doubt, which tries to. It's true that tobacco companies were trying to play down when the evidence came out that smoking was bad for you a long time ago. They tried to play it down. They also tried to blame deaths because house fires. When houses catch fire, very often the cause of a house catching fire and burning down, killing people, is an accident with smoking, an unlit match, a cigarette end that falls onto an armchair and then it catches light. They said, no, it's not. It's flammable material in the furniture that causes it, not our product. Again, that was false. But the problem with the Merchants of Doubt film, regarding climate change, and somehow people, the thesis is that oil companies are behind climate change denial. That actually doesn't. I explain in the film exactly why that's not the case. But they're essentially saying that they do the same thing, really. David Smith says, apologies for my comment barrage. I'm quite enjoying it, David. It's all right. That's what the comments box is there for. I'm thinking if we get them all together, it should be on the same timestamp, maybe. Sometimes I don't mention anything specific, because with the holographic planes, it ends with an I don't know, or I've made a video about that. No, it ends with a book called Where Did the Towers Go? And Irrefutable, the associated video. Nothing wrong with those answers and referring to other content, either from yourself or where you get the information from. But specifically with the holograms, I don't see anyone who's confirmed such a feat will be technologically possible either now or then. Well, I showed some images. We can look into that. As I mentioned in an earlier comment, pretty much every claim and conspiracy you mention has videos of people refuting it, debunking it, or responding to the claims conspiracies make about 9/11, etc. I know, David, I've watched quite a few of them. Some of them are by Steve Mumbling, some are by other people. But, I've been to skeptic conferences. I'm a member of Oxford Skeptics in the Pub. And explaining away all these suggestions that an event wasn't what the official story confirmed it to be. Okay, well, I'm trying to look at both sides of the story, see? That's the thing, isn't it? And next up we have David again. No, we don't. Just for a change, we have Fletch. Fletch says here in Claire Ray Randall interview, is this a video of the podcast, Ben? I haven't listened to the podcast yet. Yes, it is. It's on HPANWO Radio, just audio, and Claire is going to put one up on her own channel. Nothing as it seems, says. Oh, this is Apollo Detectives 11 Artemis. Hashtag 11 Apollo hashtag 11 Detectives. Yeah, it's quite a few, isn't it? We've been going now for quite a number of years. BZ Garson. This should be a laugh. Right, well, chuckle away, BZ. You always do. Hachi. Ben, anything suppressing has something to hide. Forgive me, Star Wars pun. May the force be with you, brother. Oh, thank you. Anything suppressing has something to hide. Anything suppressing has something to hide. I don't quite understand this bit, but thanks very much. Thanks very much. May the force be with you too. Same video, Hachi. So, from my understanding, police now get diplomatic status and immunity in the community. Someone please tell me I'm wrong. Police now get diplomatic status and immunity in the community. I don't know what you mean again, sorry. Hugo Rune, Apollo Detectives. Just wanted to add, Artemis is my second name, that's right. I changed my name by deed poll thingy about 20 years ago. I forgot and I do now regret. My third middle name is Solon. That's right. Hugo Solon Artemis Rune. I remember you saying Solon, the guy who, and you've got a Wikipedia page, I know what it says, it's about Atlantis and things like that. Plato got the idea of Atlantis from Solon. Apollo Detectives again. I got to be completely honest. I'm not an intellectual man, and a lot of what you chaps talk about in these videos goes right over my head. However, I continue to watch as I have a great deal of respect for your commitment to the subject matter and feel though I'm getting something of an education while listening. Keep up the good work. Thanks, Dark Corners. I'm glad you like it. And I don't understand. Some of the guys are very technical. Jara, for example, is very technical. I try to keep up with him, but it's and he just tried to explain it well. But and Raza as well too. And Max Q says, "Don't worry. A lot of what they talk about goes over their heads." Example, please. David Smith says around 67. Ben, out of all your conversations with skeptics, which one would you say is where you got the most pushback? I did go to your blog and checked out some links, but some of them were dead. Others, the audio was beyond even what I could endure, or they were quite old with not much real debate going on. The person who probably challenged me the most... I think... Well, I had a real-life discussion with David Allen Green. He was very challenging. I couldn't always answer every point he made. But these weren't recorded. This was just when I used to go to when I used to go to the Westminster Skeptics in a pub. But I had discussions with him, debates. Online? Let's think. I'd say it's probably Michael Marshall. David, I recommend it's actually, you've got a HPANWO voice, you can find it. I was interviewed by Mike Marsh, as he's called, from Skeptics with a K, the podcast, and I found him quite difficult to refute. Got a thread now. David Smith, Apollo Detectives. Lock and load, Steve. Of course. And Steve Mumbling, of course, appears. I'm just having my breakfast. I'll try to watch this over the weekend. It should be hilarious. David Smith, crushed bones of moon landing deniers with a bit of semi-scout. You'll be lucky. And nothing it says to Steve Mumbling. The Sandusky, Ohio Plum Station vacuum chamber was completed in 1969, and in July of the same year, Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. Well, do you think it was filmed there? Nothing? It wouldn't be necessary actually for them to film it in a vacuum at all, no. And Steve says to Nothing, you do realise they wouldn't need a vacuum chamber to fake it, right? Well, that's as I just said. Yes, Steve and I agree on that. Same video. BNNT sounds fantastic. What's BNNT, Mark Porrett? Steve Mumbling says, what's this? Oh, it's a thread. Here we go. Same video. Steve Mumbling says, experts in space, this is quote, experts in space exploration, unquote. You must have a completely new team then. The usual Muppets know nothing whatsoever about space exploration. Well, the usual team do, Steve, but we do actually have, like I said, there's a new member of the team, as you saw there. And Neil Peel says, "Oh yes, we do. You're just jealous because you don't have fellow NASA fans to Skype with." Oh, nice one, Neil. And Steve says to Neil, That's hilarious. I don't need any support to know you're clueless. Perhaps you can tell us why Jarrah White is e-begging for £50,000 so he can buy a trip around Mars with SpaceX, when he's telling us all manned space travel beyond low Earth orbit would be lethal due to Van Allen and solar radiation. I've asked him and he won't respond. I wonder why, lol. Well, funny enough, Steve, that's not what Jarrah said. I actually had this same debate with him. I said to him that we wouldn't, only something like a revolution in propulsion technology, such as anti-gravity, would be possible for space journeys, manned space missions further than low Earth orbit, or at least the moon. And he said no, it could be we could go to Mars with existing technology, that is rockets and things like that. So no. As for e-begging, e-begging is simply a derogatory way of stating that he wants to crowdfund something. In this case, he wants people to fund for him to go out into space. Seeing as Jarrah makes these videos which are there to entertain us, all he's asking us to do is essentially pay him to get something that they will enjoy. He wants to produce something that his fans will enjoy. It's not e-begging. He's asking them to fund something for which they will get a lot of pleasure from. What's wrong with that? He also had, as you know, he had a personal tragedy in his life as well, and he needed help to make ends meet. There's nothing wrong with asking your friends to do that. Steve mumbling, Neil says to Steve, maybe he knows it's a one-way trip, so what a way to go out. Oh, he's got one of these master stay things, yeah. Buzz Aldrin was suggesting that. It's like in Kim Stanley Robinson's Mars trilogy, which is such a damn good series of books. They basically go off, it's about a group of people who go to Mars and to live there forever. Steve says to Neil, he knows he's talking absolute rubbish about radiation in space, and so do you. Well, no. If you watch our videos, Steve, you'll see that's not the case. If you think he's wrong, explain why he's wrong. But saying someone knows they're talking absolute rubbish when they say 2 + 2 = 4. Does that mean 2 + 2 = 5? Why wouldn't he just sit back on Earth and watch the SpaceX Mars trip crew getting fried so he could say told you so, and you could all have a good gloat, and don't forget to remind Henderson about his moon-Earth path loss calculation to demonstrate his ridiculous inverse square law argument. Why do you think he's not there in the studio? Why do you think there's not a radio engineer on the face of the Earth that agrees it couldn't be done? Excuse me. The numbers don't lie, Neil. You should be ashamed of yourself for peddling this absolute rubbish. I don't think Neil's ashamed of himself, and neither am I, and I don't think it's rubbish. Scott Henderson hasn't been with us for a while, but he might come back at some point. As for Jarrah, I haven't actually followed what Jarrah's plan is, but I know he wants people to crowdfund him something to get him into space, which is great. Good luck to him. There's nothing unethical about what Jarrah's doing there. Also, he and I did have a discussion with him. I can't remember the details, but it was actually on one of the videos, I believe. It wasn't off camera, where he does explain how something like the SpaceX Mars trip could work. There is a way of countering the risk from radiation. In the Mars trilogy, for example, the imaginary spacecraft, the Ares, has a radiation storm cellar where there's a scene where the characters will go into it because there's a solar flare. Same video, the truth is out there somewhere. The truth is out there somewhere. I wonder if Jarrah is going to bring any more videos out soon. His work is second to none. Well, he did actually do The Truth Is Out There Somewhere. He's just done a new one. I think it's a tribute to Ralph Renee. I'll have to check that out. 67. Steve mumbling. Apparently Jarrah has a BSE with geology as a major and astrophysics as a minor. This is a very long way from having a PhD in astrophysics. Alright, well, I've already tackled, someone else brought that up, and I thought maybe I got that wrong. But, as I explained to someone else, I was just trying to explain. Someone was accusing him of being some kind of internet tinkerer, and I said, no, the guy has. I thought I remembered him saying he actually got his PhD in astrophysics. If that's not true, but still, he's still an educated guy. I mean, compared to me, He's an educated guy. You know, you could the accusations you made about him, or someone made about him, you could apply to me, but not to him. Doesn't mean I'm wrong. Doesn't mean I'm stupid. It just means I don't have an education. The usual exaggeration from the tinfoil hat brigade. Anyone with real knowledge of astrophysics would know the Van Allen radiation belts are no barrier to manned moon exploration. Well, as we've explained, Steve, that's not true. All right, now the fun begins. This thread here, I actually copied and pasted it in case people try to delete it. Steve Mumbling says here. Charles hasn't. Oh, wait till Charles turns up. That's funny. Charles, what? Isn't Jarrah White e-begging for $500,000 so he can go to Mars with SpaceX? As I've explained, that's all right. That doesn't sound like he's too worried about the Van Allen radiation belts. All right, I'm not going to read the rest of that out because I've already dealt with that issue. Okay, I've already dealt with that issue. BZ Garson says here. He's also e-begging $2 million to buy his late Nan's house because it has special memories for him. Delusional, but it has its advantages. The main criteria to be a member of the Apollo Detectives Sad Lads Club. That's a stupid thing to say, BZ. And also, what's wrong with him wanting to buy his Nan's house? What's wrong with that? He loved his grandmother. He looked after him. He's asked, you know, he has people who will maybe crowdfund for him to keep the house. If he does, then he'll have places where he can then have somewhere to do a studio again. There's nothing wrong with that. Why is that bad? And Steve then asked a question about which I've already answered about Jarrah and about his plan to go out into space, and about how he believes there is a way to counter the space alien risk. I'm not going to repeat myself, Steve, there. And I've actually put a reply to BZ because right, yeah, BZ Garson. This is another. BZ Garson says this about the comment I just read out about BZ Garson about Jarrah's Nan's house. He later accuses me of deleting, and I've got a screenshot and I've copied it, and I can actually see it here. So BZ, if you're looking, have a look at this. I don't normally show you this page, but I'm going to. BZ, it's there, okay? I haven't deleted it. Do you see it? Thank you. And Steve Mumbling says here, what's unfair? Okay. Steve then just asked the question and I've already answered. And Steve Mumbling says here, if I get time, I'll make a video about this nonsense. And I'll be asking that question. That's about the solar radiation and Jarrah's supposedly contradictory views on it, which are not actually contradictory. There's also no data about an X-class solar flare in April 1972. There was one in August 1972, but not April. NASA's radiation data, which was measured in the Apollo 16 spacecraft, shows 0.51 rads. Apollo 14 recorded the highest radiation level at 1.14 rads, so no more ill-informed claptrap. Again, this nonsense has more holes than a colander. It really is dismal rubbish. Steve, who actually claimed there was an X-class solar flare in April 1972? If that's the case, fair enough. But and again, look, Steve, I've actually put it. Do you mean this comment, Steve? Right? This here is a comment Steve Mumbling accused me of deleting. Again, I'm showing it you here. So, and I will be coming back to this. If you wonder why I'm doing this, this is a subject I will be coming back to in a future thread. And we have now Max Q on Apollo Detectives. Tim's going to the moon. What's this? Congratulations, the everyday astronaut. What's this? Right. Right. I'm riding to the moon on a starship. Ads. Let's get through the ads. Oh no, it's not ads. Sorry. Well, I'm sub to him. Anyway, there you go.
So,
Alright, this is a 7-minute video, but you can see here, I have been chosen as one of the members of an incredible Dear Moon mission. Oh right, Dear Moon is the, that's the private moon mission, yes. Oh right, of course, I saw him on the website, yes. I remember now. Yep, his name is on the website, Sir Max Q, yeah. I think maybe you posted me a link. So he's going. It's basically a completely privately run moon mission called Dear Moon. Oh yeah. So Tim's going to the moon. Congratulations to the everyday astronaut. This is Max Q talking now. It couldn't happen to a nicer guy, and one who has spent so much time and energy educating the general public in all things rocketry. As you guys might know, SpaceX announced they would fly 2 paying members of the public to the moon and back by 2018. Yes, they did. I remember that, and of course it's now 2022. The plan was to fly the crew using a Crew Dragon capsule atop a Falcon Heavy booster. Right, yeah, and that's basically what the Artemis mission is, really. Unbeknownst to the public at the... Sorry, no it's not. Sorry, what am I talking about? Artemis is NASA, pardon me. Unbeknownst to the public at the time, it was Japanese billionaire and all-round good guy Yusaku Maezawa, MZ, who has purchased all the tickets. However, as things were panned out, MZ learnt of SpaceX's plan to build a ship and booster configuration that would carry 100 crew to the moon or Mars. Starship and the Super Heavy booster. MZ decided to put his plan on ice and wait for the Starship so he could take more people on his adventure. Well, MZ's crew has been made public, and Tim Dodd, the everyday astronaut, is going to the moon. SpaceX have sold other tickets for other missions too, but I'm so happy for Tim, I wanted to bring this to your attention. I'm not jealous at all. Oh, Max, well, you know, I've heard a little bit about the Dear Moon website. Now, again, this is if and when this mission is achieved, obviously we'll reassess. We'll be reassessing exactly what they do and about the radiation risk. You know, people claim Jarrah is essentially claimed that space flight beyond the Van Allen belt is impossible. He hasn't claimed that. Manned space flight can be done, and indeed I had a discussion with him about this very thing. But he just said that the radiation risk would be needed to be dealt with. It could be that it's now been dealt with. David Smith now has a timestamp for me on 67. What's this? Ghostwatch 30. Andy McGee says, regarding the Enfield poltergeist, when being interviewed, the girl making the throat noises constantly has a guilty smile on her face. I find it hard to believe this event was genuine. She does a bit, doesn't she, Janet? Yeah, she's sort of giggling a little bit. But it doesn't. She only you hear her say a few words. I mean, you know, there's tape recordings of hours of recordings of this voice appearing. Apparently not from her, but from near her. So there's Guy Lyon Playfair. There's Morris Gross. There's several other people.
What's the point,
there's news reporters. There's police people. It's whatever happened on that TV interview. Whatever Janet was doing there. I mean, it's hard to say. She seems to be giggling a bit, you know, and seems to be having a joke. Funnily if Margaret is not. Margaret has a straight face, which I thought was odd. But there you go. It can't be proved or disproved at this point. All right, I get your point. DZ. He says it can't be proved or proved at this point. Thus, we should accept it as good evidence, right? No. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting you can't actually say that because it looks like she's giggling and she's making this noise that the entire poltergeist phenomenon at Enfield was caused by her and her tricks. That's what I'm saying, which is not the same thing as suggesting that because something can't be proved or disproved, we should say, well, in that case, it's real. So I'm not suggesting that. Steve Mumbling says on 67, doco about alien abduction, more realistic than the Travis Walton story. Let's have a look at this. This is a documentary about alien abduction.
Nothing to see here.
Oops, sorry.
Just a hot...
Close Encounters SNL. Saturday Night Live. Alright. These people share. Kate McKinnon, any relation to Gary? Cecily Strong, Ryan Gosling share different stories about that alien abduction. Alright.
Agent Morris with the NSA, and this is Special Agent Kirkpatrick. Now we know.
Oh,
you've
I've seen
all
this.
been
This is
quite
funny.
nervous,
Yeah.
So we appreciate you making the trip to Washington on such short notice. How did they?
Yeah, I've seen this.
Pointed at the bowl.
This is funny.
Yeah, a little different for me.
All right, I don't have time to watch. All right.
It was so beautiful.
This is basically, yeah. All right. This is taking the Mickey out of alien contactees. They've got this. I've seen this, Steve. It's a comedy show. It's a comedy sketch. They've got these people who are like kind of hillbillies, and they're being interviewed. I don't have time. I've seen it before, and it's funny. It's funny. David Smith says, finally, some hard evidence. Now I'm a believer. Yeah, very droll, David. Very droll. Yes, very droll. Now we come to Charles Scott. Now we come to Charles Scott. This is where the fun begins, guys. This is where the fun is. It's taken 2.5 hours to get here, but we're here. BZ Garson. Why was my Jarrah White e-begging comment deleted? What happened to unfettered free speech, Mr. Emlyn-Jones? Well, may I refer you back a few minutes to where I showed you your video? Sorry, I've showed you the on this video where your comment was not deleted. Now, and I say under here, I've not deleted any comments. I'll try to find out. So, maybe every time you and Steve Mumbling accuse me of deleting your comments, have you ever thought that maybe I haven't deleted them and it's just you can't see them for some reason? Which, of course, that happens with YouTube sometimes. Now, I've just proved to you that I haven't deleted them. So BZ, apology accepted. And then Charles Scott wades in here. This is where it gets fun. BZ Garson's comment has been visible for at least several hours. This indicates a human deleted the comment rather than software. Obviously, I view you, Ben, as the number one culprit, given the factual proof and factual evidence regarding the OLM situation. This will be interesting if you can find out anything about why this comment was deleted. All right, well, Charles, I've just done that. So all you have to do is watch this video. So I'm interested to hear how you say that. I accept your apology as well, by the way. And then I say to Charles Scott, I don't know what you're talking about. The comment is visible in my studio comments list. Do you want a screenshot? Charles then said, assuming BZ Garson is telling the truth, and he's referring to the comment I have seen visible on YouTube for several hours, and it indicates a human has deleted his comment. I don't want the screenshot, thanks, nor am I trying to prove or say anything. You are the culprit. And I say to Charles, what, can I quote you? Quote, obviously I review you, Ben, as the number one culprit. Is that quote incorrect? NB, I've taken a screenshot. Charles, you're at the top of my list of culprits, number one culprit. That's not saying you are the culprit. And I say, why is that and who's the others? And Charles says, I've already explained about why you are at the top of the list. There are at least 5 different ways for a human to delete the comment. You deleted the comment in a particular order. 2, YouTube employees deleted it. 3, someone logging into your account and deleting it. 4, BZ Garson deleting it. And 5, someone logging into BZ Garson's account and deleting it. And I say, it certainly wouldn't be me. But in this case, no one has deleted it. It's still there, and I can see it. Do you want a screenshot? Well, you don't need a screenshot now, Charles, because I've just shown it to you. Charles get no thanks. I'm trying to prove you. I'm not trying to prove you're lying again. But I do take what you say with a pinch of salt, given the actual proof and factual evidence with the OLM situation. Oh my goodness me, Charles! If I live to be 100. You'll be there. You'll put yourself on life support just to live long enough to be so you can bring up the OLM situation at the party, won't you? You are really getting obsessed with this. And I say here, that's not the point, Charles. The screenshot would contain the comment you say is deleted. But I see, so if I send you a screenshot, you'll claim I faked it. How very convenient. Every piece of evidence that exonerates me, you accuse of being faked with 0 evidence. Believe me, on the next reply to comments video, you are going to be the star of the show. And you are, Charles. And don't bother deleting anything, because I've already screen capped everything you said. Charles said, you need to get your facts straight. I've never said a comment has definitely been deleted. I have said above, on the assumption BZ Garson is telling the truth, then the comment has been deleted, and that's a fact. But I already told you, I'm not trying to prove you're the culprit, so I don't want a screenshot. And what does a screenshot prove? If a comment has been permanently deleted, then a screenshot will not show you that deleted comment. If the comment has been temporarily deleted from YouTube viewers' visibility, then the comment will still be visible from a screenshot. I haven't said you sent me a screenshot and then you faked it. This is a matter primarily between you and BZ Garson. I'm highly suspicious about what you say, Ben, given the OLM situation. And I see. I've deleted nothing. Just you wait till the next comments reply video. Yes, Charles, you've just seen it, haven't you? Are you going to say I'm faking this video? Is that going to be your next line? I'm faking this video. Charles Scott. As you claim you haven't deleted BZ Garson's comment, then presumably you're accusing him of lying or giving the impression that he is lying, or are you saying he is mistaken, which I find very hard to believe. It will be difficult to prove or disprove, as you could have temporarily deleted the comment visibility by your YouTube viewers before reinstating the comment. I don't think you can do that, actually, Charles. You can't delete something and then bring it back. Not in comments. Charles continues. I'm not saying you've definitely deleted anything. However, BZ Garson is saying his comment has been deleted. Well, it hasn't, has it? I'm saying I treat you with suspicion given the OLM situation that you repeatedly give out misinformation and disinformation. And Neil then says, YouTube has a habit of deleting comments on some kind of auto setting. Many people accuse me of hiding comments, but I don't. I only delete completely rude people. Neil, I can guess exactly who the people who make these accusations against you, and I can guess exactly which comments you delete. And I reply to Neil explaining, basically, that's true. Charles Scott says to Neil, the paranormal people, yes, it appears that sometimes that is the case. However, I'm not aware that software deletes a comment after several hours of comment visibility. If so, then presumably a human has deleted the comment. The comment Ben is referring to in his studio comments list might not be the comment I'm thinking of, or BZ's thinking of. Ben's above comment starting with, that's not the point, Charles, is at least misinformation or could be disinformation, in an attempt to try and discredit me, in which case Ben is showing a noxious side to his character. For example, all evidence supporting Ben that I have said was faked, I've never said that was zero evidence. Well, Charles, as you can see, the comment BZ is referring to is a specific one to do with Jarrah White. He's claiming I deleted. He accused me of deleting it. I've just shown him that I've shown everyone that I haven't deleted it, and BZ has just apologised, and I've accepted his apology. Neil says to Charles, I think sometimes when I try to find a comment that someone has replied to, I often can't find it. It can vary due to coding errors in software, typed to phone browsers, that sort of thing. Sometimes it just ends up in a holding area that might be released or moved there. That's my experience anyhow. It does cause unwanted anger amongst YouTubers, of course, and Charles says, I doubt that it can be proven what happened anyway, but I do view Ben with suspicion. It's not the first time Ben has lied over the OLM situation. He has lied previously. See reply to comments 48, 49, 50, Part 2, and UFO Disclosure 2021. It could happen any time. I have additional evidence that he lied over the OLM situation, but I need permission to release that information, which I haven't been granted. Oh, now... Oh, I could tell you more, but I'm not allowed to. No. I know something you don't know. Well, let me know when that is, Charles. I'm not holding my breath. Neil then... Okay. I'm not going to read the rest of this because I think this is just Neil and Charles talking about what Charles is basically informing Neil of the OLM situation. All right then. So Neil, if you want, you may have already watched the video, but basically it's actually in this video I explain how what Charles is saying is completely untrue. He's basically been presented with evidence that he's immediately saying that I faked when he's got no evidence. He then accuses me. He then says that I've been caught lying because someone else a third party has presented evidence to us that he says could not possibly have been faked when it's exactly the same kind of evidence, a screenshot. So I'm not going to read this out. This is just basically Charles and Neil doing a kind of going into the background of things. Okay, so moving on. But anyway, that was good fun. I think there's a bit more actually from Charles. I'm actually going to go through I'll go through a little bit of I'm going to go through a little bit of some of my notes, actually, because I actually screenshotted a few things because I think some of the things might be deleted. All right. Now Max Q is talking about. All right. I'm not going to read all of this, Max, because a lot of it is kind of. I'm going to skip a few, if you don't mind, because a lot of this is some like background stuff. Why would engineers use radiation measurements on Apollo command module for an Apollo command module for an Orion command module? That would be dumb and reckless. Yes, NASA have the radiation measurements from inside the Apollo CMs on a moon trip, but they're not flying an Apollo CM, are they? I know you guys are not engineers, but this is basic stuff. Well, they would use them and take into account the differences, for example, in the engineering of the capsule. Are you saying that because these radiation measurements were taken from inside a different spacecraft, it's useless data? It can no longer be used as to even assess the radiation risk from the Orion capsule? Are you saying that? The ISS often gets hit with micrometeorites. So did the STS. Commander Chris Hadfield, in his master class, talks about hearing these strikes. The ISS does need a boost every now and again. It's done using docked Russian Progress spacecraft. I know. I've seen the video of them doing it. They actually burn the rocket for a while, and the ISS accelerates, and they actually demonstrate it by holding something up, and you see the inertia. Russia, at the beginning of the war with Ukraine, threatened to stop providing this service. No problem. SpaceX would do it with a docked Dragon or Crew Dragon spacecraft. The same goes for Gateway. A docked Starship or Lunar variant would give it a nudge. Oh, I see. So that means that because the Gateway essentially would be a sub-satellite of the Moon. And I was explaining how sub-satellites don't exist in nature because of the uneven gravitational field. They can't hold a stable orbit. So is that a solution to why the Gateway would actually stay in stable orbit around the Moon? In which case, okay, that's something we've got to take into account. The dummies, actually called phantoms on Artemis 1, have female forms because women typically have greater sensitivity to the effects of space radiation. Put simply, because they have breasts. Only Zohar will wear an Astrorad vest, so the difference can be measured. The shielding itself in the Astrorad vest is comprised of a polymer suit with a high abundance of hydrogen. I've no idea where Raza got boron nitrate nanotubes from. Neither the Orion or Starship heat shields are made from boron nitrate nanotubes. In fact, boron nitrate nanotubes are not used in any hardware for Artemis or Starship, including spacesuits. NASA are planning to use boron nitrate nanotubes for the heat shield in future Artemis missions to Mars. Russia has clearly got this Raza has clearly got this all round his neck, which leads me to conclude if he's working for the Chinese National Space Administration as a translator, he doesn't understand what he's translating. Well, I don't have an answer to that, Max Q. I don't have an answer. I have another thread here, BZ Garson on Artemis. Okay, BZ is simply repeating a point a lot of people made earlier about Jara, which I've already said countered. He says, so yes, Ben, it's a fair comment. Did it not cross your mind? I thought not. You never ever question anything your fellow Apollo defectives saying. Oh, is that right? Jara, I actually text underneath you're wrong, unfair to Jara. I could go on for us, but I'll save it for the next comments reply video. I've already responded to this accusation about Jara and his finances. I think you're misrepresenting him. BZ then says, you need at least a master's degree to become an astrophysicist, though many employers require a doctoral degree. Students can expect to take courses in engineering, physics, astronomy and other social science courses. Students need to first complete a bachelor's degree with major in astrophysics or similar field, so he's on the first rung of the ladder towards becoming an astrophysicist. Again, at least he's on the ladder. That's the main thing. It's enough. He knows enough to be able to talk about this sort of thing. In addition to coining other popular basketball slang terms such as airball, dribble drive, triple double and finger roll, legendary play-to-play announcer Chuck Hearn was also the first to coin the phrase slam dunk. Hearn first used the slam term while announcing a Los Angeles Lakers game in 1972. White and the Chinese space boy are wrong. Okay, so be it. I used to play basketball at school, actually, BZ, and I've heard of slam dunks and dribble drive, but I don't know those other terms. But, I don't remember, we may have used other words for it. Alright, Silent Night Watch Party Review, another new video. Great review, Ben, really enjoyed it, very well relayed and merry time for you. Thanks mate, you too Rick, much appreciated. Artemis again, David Smith. Gotta be honest, I listened to all of this and enjoyed it. Disagree with almost everything, but the discussion seemed clear and to the point. It was interesting to get an insight on what others believe. I was watching Interstellar the other day too, and when the bit about the moon landing being faked came on, I couldn't help but think how woke lefty the character was when they were suggesting about how not wasting resources on space travel was more important. You know, that's one film I've never seen. It's one of these films I thought, well, I should go and watch that, and I've never watched it. But thanks, David. I'm glad you like that. I'm glad you enjoyed it, even if you disagreed. I enjoy some of the skeptic videos, even though I disagree with them. 67 Tor Engen. Futuristic sci-fi movies had one correct prediction: women with purple hair. Yes, they got that right, didn't they? Silent Night Watch Party Review. Diego Rivera says they're claiming a nuclear fusion breakthrough. Are you going to do a video about it? Right, Diego Rivera contacted me on Twitter about this as well. The answer is I'm not planning to make a video at this time. However, I have done a HPANWO Voice article which you might find interesting. I know for the 5% of you who actually read HPANWO Voice, this is it. So you want to check that out? Nuclear fusion breakthrough, HPANWOvoice.com. So there's the URL there. See. So there you go. Check that out. And we go further. We have another thread. Oh, we have another thread here. Artemis. And Neil says, thanks for posting this, Ben. It gives those flag wavers something to rattle their Apollo Surface Journals leather-bound editions, which are frequently edited too. Yeah, and Steve says, it gave me a laugh, that's for sure. And Neil says to Steve, but that's all you can say, that's a wrap then. Steve says, I'll be doing a response video to this nonsense. So I look forward to that, Steve, I do. BZ says to Neil, hey mate, pop over to Steve's channel, he does quite a few videos. One in real-time scenario, debunking the rubbish you spout. I'd love to hear your personal collective responses, maybe in your next group video, eh? Well, BZ, I've actually done several reply videos to Steve myself. Neil says to BZ, we keep asking him to come and debate with us, but he never does. Why don't you, okay. Why don't you come on and openly debate with us? Yay! BZ says, I can't speak for Steve, but I don't like my photo taken, let alone appearing on the video. As for audio, I like my privacy. I expect there are millions of us who think the same. I'm no expert on the supposed Apollo 11 moon hoax, but neither do I think that you and your gang are. Alright, well, if you don't want to appear, that's fair. Steve, BZ, I'm not going to, denounce you because of what you said, your point you've made about not wanting to appear publicly. But surely, why don't you join us in asking Steve to come and join us too? As I said, if Colin Sugrin's willing to talk to him after what he said about him, I'm not going to press that point any further. What criteria do you set for being an expert in space exploration, as described in the description of this video? In order to be eligible to be part of your gang, a scientist, physicist, aeronautical space engineer, mathematician, a conspiracy theorist, I could go on. Well, all of those things are none of them, BZ. I mean, even the last one doesn't count, because we had Blue Earth Thing, who believes the official story of Apollo. I asked you to take a look at a few brief videos that Steve made. Just one for now. A single light source of shadows of objects projecting out at different angles. Should be easy to rebut if you or your gang are really experts. Well, actually, I've actually rebutted it, BZ. I think I've done 3 Apollo reply videos to Steve mumbling. Neil says, BZ, sorry, but very typical of a lot of Apollo fans hiding behind their keyboards. Not a lot, but a lot. Not all, but a lot. Steve's videos are quite hilarious, trying to tell us how the sun creates shadows at different angles by using tree foliage. I mean, at least use rocks. Yeah, and also don't just rely on any change of perspective. Try to reproduce the same perspective changes. And there are no trees on the moon. As for experts, some of the people we have had as guests range from pilots, astronomers, geologists, filmmakers, photographic experts, as well as ordinary folk who take an interest in space technology and similar. We talk about the late Xavier Pascal, who was an aerospace engineer as well as a computer engineer. His website is full of high-tech info, and so are his videos. Yeah, that's Hunched Back, rest in peace. BZ says to Neil, you conveniently omitted in the same videos the shadows cast at different angles on solid objects, rocks and sign and concrete and metal poles, cherry-picking what suits you. True to form for the CTs, so according to your logic, you can only make valid points and counter-arguments if you are prepared to put your mush in front of a camera and spout shite. Not at all, BZ. You can make points any way you like. For example, you made a point here. I've actually explained this in my reply video to Steve, so we don't need to cover this again. But he says, look, he shows examples of how shadow angles change in all photos where there's perspective effect. But as Gerhard Wisniewski points out in his book Lies in Space, they don't reproduce the anomalous changes in perspective that you see in the Apollo records. See, that's the difference. BZ says, Steve says to BZ, sorry, Neil says to BZ, Steve can't reproduce the Apollo 17 rock shadow, which is at odds from the shadow of Gene Cernan. I picked trees vise that it was the most stupid point in his shadow arguing. I prefer to debate via Skype, really, because I end up repeating the same points in each comment. Many more people can watch us, and anyone who comes on. And he says, so, and Neil carries on, so do you agree you will come on? You will come on and spout shite then? We have a chair warming for you. Well, if BZ wants to do that, that's cool. But if he doesn't want to do it himself, persuade Steve to. Gary Robinson says here on Apollo Detectives, Ben, mate, totally off topic, but have you seen the new Indy 5 trailer? It features a scene of Indy teaching a class, and on board is a picture of Die Glocke, the supposed German UFO. Enjoy this one, mate. Cheers. No, I haven't. Let me have a look. Let me have a look at this. Okay. Indiana Jones 5 trailer. Let's have a look. Let's you look at it. Which I probably, if it's going to be really woke, I won't watch it.
I miss the desert.
That's the thing they filmed in Glasgow, I guess.
I miss
what's that? Yeah, what is that? Ooh, what is that? Can you see it? This thing here. Is that Die Glocke? Maybe I'll carry on a bit, maybe. He's in a lecture thing.
Waking up every morning. Common.
Is that it? Oh, right.
Things I can't watch.
Okay. Well, I get the impression. All right, and right, you are. Is that Die Glocke? I'm not sure, but yeah, it could be. I'll look into that a bit more. Okay, Claire. This is the Claire interview. Just checking how am I doing for time? I'm nearly at the end of another hour. This is going to be longer than I thought, actually, for just 2 weeks. David Smith says on Claire. If Claire wanted to, she could call into the Transatlantic Call-In show on the Line channel. It's hosted by someone here in the UK and USA, hence the name. They take all calls and welcome disagreements and discussion. Same channel also has the Skep Talk show. If you can call into that and put across your ideas in real time and real subjects. Yeah, I'd be glad to. I've not heard of that, actually. The Transatlantic Call-In show, the Line channel. I'll look it up. You see, I've been on the Skeptics with a K podcast, which is a skeptic radio show. I've also done Righteous Indignation, which is a podcast hosted by Tristan Swale, who I never have anything to do with now. Not because he's a skeptic, because he's a complete piece of shit. Okay, so yeah, I'm willing to talk to people, absolutely fine, who don't agree with me. Apollo Detectives, TK. Genghis Khan didn't know the capital of Honduras was Tegucigalpa, and he wasn't ever a hospital porter. Damn! There's me, and I thought Genghis was a brother. I was going to salute him. Pride and dignity, brother Porter. Genghis, you know. I don't care if you kill 40 million people. You're a brother Porter. We share a common destiny. TK carries on. Ben also doesn't know the capital of Honduras is Tegucigalpa. Tegucigalpa. So what more proof do you need that Ben was never a hospital porter? Funny enough, I don't know that. That's a good way of putting it, TK, because, yeah, someone was saying, well, we don't know you were a hospital porter, do we? I remember that comment, yeah. Can you prove it? I didn't know what the capital of Honduras was, no. Silent Night Watch Party Review. Arne Saknussemm, who's a character from Journey to the Centre of the Earth by Jules Verne. Oh yeah, you wrote to me, didn't you, Arnie? He says, I think there is a movie version of On the Beach, Ben, with Gregory Peck and Fred Astaire. Great review. Thanks very much, Arnie. And you know, you did write to me, and apparently there is a film version of it. I didn't know that. Oh, and that's the end of an hour. That's convenient. Okay, guys, so we'll be back for hour number 4 very soon indeed. Alright, guys, it's hour number 4. We are rolling, yes we are. Okay, so hour number 4 coming up. I think this will be the last one. We're nearly at the top of the YouTube comments, and I'll go on to BitChute and Rumble and Odyssey, of course. So now we have Steve. Oh, we have Steve Mumbling now doing the same thing on Apollo Detectives. Why did you delete my radiation post, Ben? Are you really that determined to hide the truth? I'll repost and video myself doing it. Right. This is why this is such a fun show, because of course, if you recall, it's like one of these detective stories where you've got to remember the clues that appear early on. Do you by any chance remember me talking about this, about Steve also saying that he accused me of deleting a comment? Because I replied to him here, I've deleted no comments all this week. I don't know where it is. I'll liberate the spam, so check back. So I did that, and I put here. And I said here, this is, well, you've already seen it, haven't you? You've already seen the comment that Steve's accusing me of being deleting. And I actually quote him. I says, is this it? Wink. Steve Mumbling 3 days ago, at Ben the JR Porter. If I get the time, I'll make a video about this nonsense, and I'll be asking that question. There's also no data about an X-class solar flare in April 1972, etc., etc. And I says, and I say unquote, and then I say, I can see it. And Steve Mumbling says, yes, that's the one. Has it magically reappeared? And I say, yes, or for some reason you couldn't see it when you last looked. In fact, every time you constantly accuse me of deleting your comments, this is the real explanation. Apology accepted. And he hasn't replied to that. Silent Night Watch Party Review. David Splendid Isolation. It's not a Bugatti, it's a Lotus Evora GT4 10 Sport. Right, oh I see. Dave knows his posh cars. Right, yeah, that's what it is, a Lotus Evora GT4 10 Sport. Right, it's a very smart car anyway that character is driving, James, the doctor. The doctor with this cool turtleneck sweater and the young girlfriend. Yeah, it's a nice car anyway, I tell you, a really nice car. David says here as well on Silent Night Watch Party Review, this is somewhat like Ray Bradbury's short story The Last Night of the World in the Illustrated Man, adapted for the film version. Right, I've not seen that. The only thing I've seen of Ray Bradbury is The Chronicles of Mars. There's some very good films were made out of that. This is where two parents become privy to an encroaching death of everyone on Earth, as they find out everyone is having the same dream of it. And that night they wrestle with deciding whether to save their children from the pain when it comes. They eventually decide to euthanize their children, and when the next morning comes, they have the stark and horrific realization that it didn't happen, and it wasn't the last night of the world after all. The book version doesn't have the children element, but has the husband and wife reasoning through their life together and deciding to carry on as normal, up to their retiring to bed and encroaching end. Oh, that's interesting. I've not heard of that, but thanks, David. Yeah. Okay, same video here. Same video and David's Splendid Isolation again. I actually called the end of this film before. I actually called the end of the film before I saw it, in that Art would end up surviving. Oh right, yeah, I didn't predict that myself, but yeah, this was the first idea I had when I saw the scene with him alone in his room, having writhing convulsions on his bed. I initially surmised that he was going through a physical reaction to having breathed in those initial wisps or dust devils that we see him breathing in. That preceded the actual gas cloud rolling in, and that this had somehow caused a chemical shift in his body and made him immune, like an antidote. We see these dust devils earlier in the film too, over the railway lines and down an empty street in London, always preceding the actual gas cloud rolling in later. Something with these swirling wisps provided Art almost like a protective vaccine to the following poison. It could be interpreted then that although nature produced the poison, as often happens in conjunction, it had produced the antidote nearby also. Davey, I never thought of that one. That's a very interesting... I never thought of that. Yeah, it could be. You see, I thought that there was the convulsions he received and the facial hemorrhaging could have been caused simply by shock. It was seeing the car with the dead family in it. However, the better explanation, and I feel the only place to go, is that the gas cloud had somehow petered out just before it promptly engulfed them, and even, which fits better, the heavy snowfall that night had somehow dissipated or neutralised the poison gas cloud. Well, I don't think it's possible snow can have that effect, yes, but you see, the gas cloud hit the house before the snow fell. And it definitely is no doubt the house is engulfed by a gas cloud. It doesn't peter out just before it reaches them. But what fits even better is that Art, in a death-like state, and wasn't breathing in the gas when it engulfed the house. So that he again, ironically, was the only survivor. You know, that actually happens in the film The Signs. You know, with Mel Gibson playing this fallen priest. You know, that happens in that film about alien invasion. Yeah. Therefore, Art was the only one who didn't take a suicide pill, and thus, having only been exposed to a small quantity of gas from those initial dust devils, mini tornadoes, it made him sick and close to death, but not enough to kill him, so that he had pulled through and woken up the only survivor, his parents thinking he'd already died. This is a more elegant explanation. Of course, this is the more poignantly tragic ending. I never thought about that before, but those are good ideas. Those are other good ideas, David. And as I said, the filmmakers themselves never explain. They leave it open to interpretation by the viewer. It's interesting. It's true that his mum and dad don't really check to see whether he's alive or dead. As soon as they see the facial hemorrhaging, they immediately gulp their own pills down in a panic. So do his two brothers, the twins, the younger brothers. David, thank you very much. That's an interesting spin on things. You know, I hope you'll bring those up in the live stream when I do it, because that's very interesting. In fact, I'm going to just cut and paste your comment into notes, so that hang on. I'm going to cut and paste your comments into the notes for the live stream, I think, because that's very good. Live stream template notice. Where's the notes for the live stream? Notes. Here we go. Right. Let's cut and paste those in there. Nope, no. I have to paste special. Undo paste, paste special, unformatted text. There we go. That's it. So there we are, David. That's actually sorted in for the next. That's actually sorted in there. I'm just going to get back the. Obviously, get back. Remember my clipboard? Get that back. Get back the timestamp. So thank you very much for those. That's very interesting. Apollo Detective Snarnock. I've just noticed that certain comments, including my own, sometimes here on other channels, do not appear unless you select Sort by Newest First. When I click Newest First, the hidden comments come up. Snarnock, thank you very much. Steve Mumbling BZ, why don't you try that before you accuse me in future? Okay, new video with Rin Michaelis catching up. David Smith. I'm an SJW and proud. Can I still be one if I'm not always politically correct? No, I don't think you can. I think the political correctness goes together with that. It seems to be lumped in with lefty woke type insults, which just seem to be ways for people to respond without engaging in the details of what was said, or don't want to say exactly what they mean because they don't like the idea of consequences for saying what they really think. Well, to be honest, there are different types of lefty woke SJWs. You know, there's those like Shoe on Head, who's now considered, says she's part of the left. There's the serfs who say they're part of the left. But then, the Christy Winters and Kevin Logan, who are like they consider themselves the real leftists, and they're always attacking those guys, saying they're like crypto fascists and things like that. Yeah. But yeah, I think political correctness is a part of being woke. Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, you see, I would say that the people who like the sort of, it's all very complicated and convoluted with a lot of contradictions. But there's the anti-SJW left, and the anti-SJW right, and things like that. The serfs and people like the various people like Micro Media, who Micro considers himself part of the left. He said so. They're kind of like the libertarian left. This is the war that broke out, the massive skeptic war that broke out a few years ago between the Atheism Plus people, PZ Myers, and the people around him, and the libertarian, the people, the slime pit, as it was called, which is kind of like an ironic joke. They call themselves the slime pit because someone said they were a slime pit. So they set up a forum called the slime pit. They both consider themselves left wing. But one is I would say, is anti-woke, and I would not describe as left-wing. I wouldn't describe Mike Carew as left-wing. He's too, he's very, very anti-feminist and has a brilliant critique of feminism, which is excellent. It's on the scale of Shoe on Head in her early days on Sargon. Yeah, catching up with Rin Michaelis again. Hugo Rune. I enjoyed that, Ben. And me, first comment. I'm afraid, old son, that David beat you to it. Yeah, David Smith beat you to it there. And David Smith says, that's odd. I can't say that thing Ben gives to first commenters. Oh, he gets a love heart anyway, yeah. Rin Michaelis, Hatchy. Beautiful crop circle in the background. It's been a big subject ufology-wise, UAP these days, and yet... Big subject, yeah, ufology. Yes, I'm very into crop circles, yes. Most don't talk about from the stems bent, not broken, and the amount of radiation in them, plus more. I got kicked off another channel because they had no idea. Keep going, Ben, from a happy hero. From a happy hetero to another, lol. Oh, thanks, Hatchie, that's great, oh well. And, yeah, I chose that background. I think I like that particularly crop circle. Lucy Pringle was always talking about it. Hatchie says also here on Ren Michaelis, Ben, being a maverick is not a good thing to be. R.I.P. KBS. Carry the baton. You and he did some wonderful shows together. Could you not get Chris Everard on in this right royal time? Lol. Before the coronation would be a groundbreaking show. Himself was good with KBS also. Oh, I'd like to. I did interview Chris Everard once over the death of Diana. That's a good idea. Yeah, I'd love to. And yeah, but Kev, it's almost like a year since Kev passed away. It's about a year ago I did my last show with him, yeah. And we did some lovely shows together, and I'm glad you enjoyed them, Hatchie. Most of them is preserved, so you can always rewatch them whenever you like. They are. I put them on archive.org, all the ones that I've got. Pioneer Spirits, how you doing, Trev? This is on Don't Eat Pringles. If it's made in a factory, it's likely bad for our health. Yeah. Rin Michaelis, Pioneer. Was the crop circle made by Matthew Williams? He will probably say it was, but if I ask him to confirm it, officially he won't. Because there is a technically criminal damage and trespass. Matthew, of course, is the only person to be prosecuted for crop circle making in this country. And that's a fact he wears very proudly on his sleeve. Claire's interview, Gary Robinson. Very interesting, Ben, mate. I do enjoy listening to Claire. I've nothing to add except to say that I bought a tub of Wall's ice cream here in Mexico the other day, and on the tub was a label saying, "Imagine a world more happy and inclusive." We are now at the point of woke ice cream. Oh my goodness me. I'm taking it wasn't white ice cream, Gary. P.S. Walls is called Hollanda in Mexico. Oh, right. That's probably a trading thing, isn't it? And finally, Patrick Patel, who says on Rin Michaelis, hi, Ben. This is completely unrelated and irrelevant to your video. That's okay. But I was watching Game of Thrones recently, and I was thinking what if they're telling us a story about what happened in the distant past. The movie talks about a great wall and also has 3 dragons. But what if it were an allegory for 3 ancient nuclear weaponized air fighter planes? Also in it, there's a character named Ira Stark, who in the end leaves Westeros to see what lies west of the continent. That is not on the official map. I'd love to hear your personal opinion one day. Well, thanks, Patrick. Much appreciated. And it doesn't matter if it's not related to the subject. Funny enough, J.R. Tolkien, it was very similar, because Middle-earth, has a lot of similarities to our world. It's almost like an alternative to our world. For example, the stars and planets in Middle-earth are the same. The characters talk about the moon, the stars, various. They mention Jupiter in one scene, and that's, and so presumably it is kind of an alternative to the same world, and maybe the world of Game of Thrones is. Funnily enough, the guy who created Game of Thrones was kind of inspired by Tolkien in a way, but almost in a kind of contradictory way, because he was a critic of Tolkien too. He wanted to write something that was similar, but wasn't a kind of moralistic story. It was more how he felt humans really react, because Tolkien stories are very sort of they are very sort of good versus evil. There's good guys and bad guys. That's what I mean by moralistic. It's about the fight for good against evil. What's the name of the guy who wrote Game of Thrones? What's his name? I want to get it right. Game of Thrones. Here it is. Game of Thrones, created by. The books were written a long time ago. An adaptation of George R.R. Martin. That's it. George R.R. Martin. A series of fantasy novels. When were they published? Let's have a look. They were quite a long time ago. In the 90s. They were published in the 90s. So the TV series came quite a while after. But he actually said that he believed that he wanted to create a story which is similar, in a similar setting, but more in line with what he believes human nature really was, which is, he believed that because many of the characters in Game of Thrones are not moral crusaders. Some of them are. They usually end up getting trampled on, which is it's very much like EastEnders in that respect. So he wanted it more that they were simply interested in their own power. It was the Game of Thrones. It's simply a continuous struggle for power, which he believed was more kind of it's more in line with what he believed. He's kind of Nietzschean, I suppose. And that again, it's like EastEnders in that EastEnders is very Nietzschean. It's about the power struggle between different people, and anyone who really deviates from that and has higher principles of abstract morality tends to be very unsuccessful, and they tend to be trampled upon. Indeed, that happens in Game of Thrones. Anyway, guys, right. Let's move on. That's all the YouTube comments for now. Although no doubt there will be more. I'm going to go to BitChute now. Now I'm going to do things. I'm not going to go through the list of the comments list just yet. I'm basically going to go through the videos I've uploaded since the last comments reply video and answer the comments there first on my channel page, and I'll go through the actual notifications afterwards, just in case I've had comments on older videos, because BitChute now does provide notifications, so I can actually look to see if I have comments on older videos. So reply to comment 67 first of all. That's the last comments reply video. No comments. Silent Night Watch Party introduction. No comments. Pylon hoax. And then, of course, you get autoplay, so you might hear it playing in the background. Oh, I've got loads of comments on this. Oh, that's just pause. Alkaline 777 says, probably not true. Sadly, most of humanity's energy comes from nuclear power. Well, it does at the moment, Alkaline, but maybe not for much longer. Maybe not for much longer. Woden20 says here, run a cable to your shed as a washing line. Dig a massive trench, destroying your garden. Any maintenance one, replace the line, dig up your garden again. That's why we have pylons. I see, yes. Oh, well, certainly over urban areas, fair enough, Woden. Fair enough. However, not necessarily, because you can also have tunnelling. There are tunnel boring machines now specifically for cables. So you don't necessarily have to dig up. You don't have to necessarily cut and cover some cable going through underground, which is in a sense digging a trench and things like that, which I agree would be difficult for planning permission and things like that. So this is why you're saying that pylons exist and not underground cables, not underground cables for major electric wires. But again, if you can have, there are mini tunnel boring machines. There are tunnel boring machines like that, which are specifically for cables, which could be used. They could run underground, and it could be that in rural areas it wouldn't be a problem. You could cut and cover things in rural areas, which is where most pylons run. So I don't think that necessarily follows. That doesn't mean I agree with the thesis in the pylon hoax video. It just means that's an answer to why sometimes there are alternatives to pylons, and what you say here doesn't count for everything. It only counts for pylons that are running over the tops of houses and things. Woden20 also says here. Well, thanks for the comment anyway, Woden. The massive generators for your electric have 2 sets of bearings, so they can be replaced without needing to stop. They need to run constantly, just in case you need a light on or a cup of tea during the night. Even if nobody uses any electric, it's still being generated 24/7, so not using it is a waste. Right. Is that like a power stations and things? Yeah. I don't know enough about that specific thing. I don't remember the actual reference within the video, but like I said, I'm not disputing what you're saying. I'm not disputing that the pylon hoax thing is wrong. And we have here Awasi, who says, how were the buildings and fountains like the 1893 Chicago World Fair illuminated? And Alkaline 777 says underneath, hydropower. Nikola Tesla tech used at Niagara Falls, I think. Yeah, Nikola Tesla did build a hydroelectric power station at Niagara Falls. However, I think what you're referring to is there's lots of weird things to do with that. It was I think it was 1890, not 93. But there was a lot of weird things going on at that Chicago World Fair. Buildings just suddenly appeared out of nowhere, things like that. Now, because Westinghouse and Tesla actually won the current war against Edison, and it was AC power that was used. There's no reason to think that there was any kind of esoteric generation as a result of that. But there are interesting things to do with that Chicago World Fair. Very interesting indeed. So, yeah. Thanks for those comments, guys. I'm going to move on now to Claire Ray Randall. I bet there'll be loads of comments on this. Oh, just one. There's just one. I'll just wait for it to... Here we go. There's just one, and it's John Doe. Good stuff, Ben. Oh, thanks very much, John. Much appreciated. Glad you enjoyed that. So just one comment. That's a nice one. Apollo Detectives 11, Artemis 1. No comments. Silent Night Watch Party Review. No comments. Withering Michaelis 8 is catching up. Isn't it Withering Michaelis 9? Oh, why does it say 9? Hang on. Just a second, I think I've got the bloody day. No, it is 8. Withering Michaelis 8. That's odd. Yes, Withering Michaelis 7 before. I was thinking I've misnumbered them or something. We'll have to adjust them. Okay, I've got some comments on here. Michael Masonwells at gmail.com. That's his username. I'm not doxing his email. What's this? Alright. Actually, I'm not gonna read out this comment here. This is Fed posting, right? Don't Fed post on my channel, please. Right, Grand Torino. Speaking of repetition, it says so Gran Turismo. Speaking of repetition, oh, is it what's a repetition in this Gran Torino? I don't think there's any repetition here, but anyway, there you go. Okay, that's now. I'm going to go through the BitChute notifications in case I have comments on older videos. Right. So I've got 808. This will take a couple of minutes. So play amongst yourselves while I do this, because I also get, of course, notifications for channels that I subscribed to. And Millennium Yule has started, so there's going to be a lot of those. Well, you have the option of clicking the bell or not. I choose to click the bell on most of them. Alright, so we have Sweeps Fox. Alright, this is not technically my video, but I'll read it out anyway. Because I say, the bad guys are rushing so much, they must be scared. Good news for us. David Icke being banned from the EU is another reason I'm glad I voted leave. Merry Christmas, Sweeps. Sweeps says, Sweeps to Fox. Yeah, I wonder if people have learned anything. They seem to have such short memories, and BitChute having no trouble with banks financing. Yeah, so hopefully people will chip in and help the free speech platform. Definitely a Merry Christmas to you and yours, Ben. Thanks. Yeah, Ray's getting Ray's big problem is that he's got the offices of the BitChute in England, and I've always in Britain. Seeing as Ray lives in Thailand, and why register BitChute in a country where this kind of stuff is practiced, this censorship is practiced. As you know, if you watch my Newbury videos, I've been to the office of BitChute. It's in Newbury. Never went in there, but I went outside. So yeah, but anyway, it's a long story. But anyway, they're using financial warfare against BitChute right now, and you can't. I've made a donation. You can. Luckily, a lot of people are donating to help him out. But it's awful. It should even have to be done, and I hope it gets sorted soon. Really, you should be able to sue people who do this. Okay, died suddenly. I've got some videos on what's it called? Expired without warning, pardon me. Pissed Off Ben says here, 5 days ago. Your attack of the C word. Have you read an isolation paper that shows the existence of C word? You had a cold or flu or something. Alright, I don't think, I know there's some question marks regarding isolation papers and things like that. I know that. However, I do believe the illness exists. Right, what have I got here? This is 22 gauge. Okay, I'm just going to see. Alright, so I've got because it's hard to keep track of these things. Augustus Berg says, hang on, here we go, not sure, not KNOT says. That's the point. Why are you choosing Stu Peters as your messenger when we've been documenting and keeping track the entire way through? There's plenty of content and less funded documentaries to get the whole truth about V-words, the entire history, sensationalism, just facts. I don't dispute that. There are other. This is not new information. I've just explained it, but it's a great way to present stuff, Augustus. This documentary was made to make the truth look stupid. It's not going to sway anyone from the other side. If it's not going to sway people from the other side, then what's the true purpose? Well, I don't agree. I think it will. I think the presentation, it's not just the facts, it's the presentation, Augustus, as I explained. I think that's what it's for. It's there to put forward information in a way that's digestible to people, even though that information existed before and they would have just thrown up with it. Then what's its purpose? We all know of all of what was in the documentary, and there's plenty left out of the documentary. So you're just playing damage control. It's on Netflix too. Is it on Netflix? You're joking. I'll just check. Wayland said, yeah, well, that's the same argument is used against Flat Earth to make people look stupid. I think the sensational documentaries do change people's minds because they reach so many people. Well done for sifting through the boring stuff and becoming well informed. If you're anything like me, then most of your family happily took the J word, the C, the V, and completely ignored any reason to even attempt to get them to watch something and not have the V word. Most of my friends and family are okay, but there's been some deaths that I put down to the V word. I can't really mention it. Too late now. It's tragic, you can't. Once people have done it, that's it, Wayland, and that's sad, isn't it? Augustus says, it doesn't make anything look stupid if you're able to think critically and not try to lump everything into one documentary. Well, that's kind of what I said, though, Augustus, isn't it? You said earlier that it did, and it's just, what it was you said, it's sensationalised. If someone's not able to theorise or discuss our world, that's their issue. It's not for everyone, as most people would rather side with the narrative. But that doesn't mean other people aren't allowed to own their research. One of the things that makes our level and stationary world laughable and stupid in the minds of so many is the fact they put that documentary on Netflix named Beyond the Curve, which focuses on some 50-year-old Mason pretending he lives with his mum and believes the Earth is flat. Oh, that's Mark Sargent. I've interviewed Mark Sargent. Are we talking about flat Earth now and not expired without warning? Because I've seen Beyond the Curve. Yeah, it's quite amusing. It's filled with nonsense that nobody actually believes, controlled, like Stu Peters. Watch him and believe him all you want, but just remember, someone did tell you he was controlled, so don't forget me when you come to the same conclusion. Hang on, so Stu Peters is controlled opposition, he's a shill. What? Augustus, you sound a bit like Richard D. Hall, you really do. Wayland, I think the worst person for Flat Earth is Eric Dubay. The level of disinfo dwarfs the amount of useful info. The best was probably Rob Skibber, R.A.P. He went to hospital for something, and they killed him with C-word treatments. Oh, I don't know that guy, but Eric Dubay, I've read his books. Yeah. Augustus, yeah, the Skibber situation was pretty coincidental, that's for sure. Dubay deserves credit to some extent, but I got you. I know where he's coming from. And here, of course, Augustus then puts a link to KarenKingston.substack.com. The filmed Expired Without Warning. Yeah, the hit pieces, yes. Oh, honestly, Augustus, you can't even put it on Facebook now without getting, like, warnings. The hit pieces, yeah, everyone is saying this is wrong. And, of course, I don't believe them. Right. Wayland, it's disgusting how they conflate lax scientific evidence with contrary evidence. Yeah, the whole C-word thing was carried out with a deliberate lack of scientific evidence. Where were the long-term clinical trials on the you-know-what V-word? Where's the official investigation to adverse reactions by something and yellow card? These are all lacking, so it left to the people to pull huge clots from dead bodies to speculate. Well, basically, yes. I mean, you can't. They can't blame us, Wayland, can they? When they fudge and they obfuscate and they ban you from saying this here and they ban you from saying that there. And they say trust the science. They say misinformation, things like that. And then they wonder why we ask questions. Why we say, hang on, are you guys diddling with us? Augustus says, I agree, the tabloid is BS, but this was always the plan with Expired Without Warning documentary. It's how they always do it throughout history. Well, Augustus, I've looked through the I'm aware of the information that's in the documentary, and I've looked through the documentary, Expired Without Warning, and I don't see why you think it's controlled opposition and Stu Peters is a shill and all this. I don't quite understand why you think that, and I've read what you said, and I don't quite get it. Wayland said, yes, but is Dubay controlled opposition or just an idiot scientifically? Was his physics howlers? He had no credibility with some of the same aspects of Flat Earth. Augustus says, personally, I don't even call it Flat Earth. Our world is level and stationary. Flat Earth was invented to make it seem stupid. Our world has mountain heights and ocean depths. It's not flat, it's level. There are areas that are flat, of course, but level explains what it really is. Augustus, I'm a roundhead, so that's all academic to me. Wayland says, there are plenty of things that do assume the Earth is level and stationary. The times when it's not, like earthquakes, landslides, even subsidence are the exception. The idea that gravity from the moon moves the tides is also open up to the possibility that all the planets have an effect too. So how do buildings stay up with all that gravity moving about? Well, it's... I was going to laugh, but, I don't have an answer to that. I don't. Doesn't mean the Earth is flat, it's just I don't have that answer right now. Wayland, so do you think they created Expired Without Warning as a target to discredit the ideas? No. I rewatched The Great Global Warming Swindle from 2005. Oh, Wayland, that's great, that is. That's really good. All the points are still spot on, yet it was pulled from Channel 4, who apologised for showing it. They've never shown it again, anything worth watching ever again. Well, of course, they did that because they know that this agenda for climate change has to be believed by everyone. So they're refusing to let people, or trying to stop people watching the other side of the story. This is why they banned RT, Ofcom banned RT's license from TV, so that we don't hear the other side of the story of Ukraine. Augustus says, I don't think documentaries are misinformation. I'm pretty sure that was on the point with this one. Yeah, that one was, yeah, The Great Global Warming Swindle. That's the end of that thread, so we move down a bit further. I've got my eye test coming up soon. Alright, yeah, so that was an interesting thread, guys, anyway. Royal Wedding, William and Kate. Oh, this is another old one. This is an old one from long ago. Right, 2 years, okay. And Vitonian says, Absolute rubbish. Vitonian, are you Steve Mumbling? Are you another type of Steve Mumbling here? We're talking about here. Oops.
Hospital port.
Okay. Well, that's just, it just says absolute rubbish, right? It doesn't say anything else. He doesn't say, is William and Kate absolute rubbish? Am I absolute rubbish? I mean, you've watched it, so presumably you like watching absolute rubbish, don't you? Going down further. It's nice to have notifications from BitChute, actually. Yeah, we must be getting towards the end now. But I like to go through all these notifications. I've still got Odyssey and Rumble to do, but no new comment. Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever. And we got another one here. Hang on, here we go. Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever. Oh, here we go. Right. Okay, someone said it was a disgusting movie, totally anti-white, hateful garbage. I disagreed. White USA says, this is White USA who said this. I give him the comments reply notification. He says, don't bother, I already know the answer. And I replied by text, are you sure about that? The video will be up in a few hours. And White USA says, don't ever want to see it. Thanks anyway. So he knows the answer. White USA knows the answer. He says, I already know the answer. I said, do you want to watch the video then? He says, don't ever want to watch it. Don't ever want to see it. Thanks anyway. Well, the thing is, White USA, if you watch it, and I'm lying, you'll be able to prove me right. You'll be able to prove me wrong, won't you? And you'll be able to gloat about it. So why don't you? As I said, I don't think it's I don't think it's anti-white, hateful garbage. It's a bad film. It's stupid. It's a stupid, boring, badly made film, but it's not anti-white or hateful. Okay. So we carry on. Oh, and we have here, right, oh, right, this is me. Right, that's it, guys, that's the end. So I'm going to do the usual. Go back to the top and I'll click mark all as read. That's it. And delete all. That's it. And that's BitChute sorted. Right, on to Odyssey. Now, I don't think I've actually had any comments from... I honestly don't think I've had any comments from... where are we? No, I don't want to change... How do I get to my channel? Channels, there we go. I don't think I've... Because I've been watching... I have to... As you know, with Odyssey, you don't get notifications. So I have to keep a very close eye on the notifications. You know, you do get you get notifications, but they're only there for 10 days. So I have to keep a very close eye on comments on videos, and I had to preserve them in my notes, or at least make a note of which video they're on if I want to reply to them. So we're going to start again with reply to comment 67. So I'm going to go through. So all I can really do, I don't recall any notices of comments on videos before the last comments reply video, which means I'm just going to go through the ones I have here, and there's no comments on that. Silent Night Watch Party introduction. No comments. Pylon hoax. Oh, I've got 4 comments. Right, okay. Trust nobody. I can always count on him to... I can always trust nobody to say something. I said, hi Ben, I remember reading long ago there's an advantage to using high voltage AC in one line that actually connected to the generating source that will induce a current in other lines not actually connected to the generator. Is this where the idea of harvesting current out of the ether comes from? Also, there's the magic of standing under power lines whilst holding a fluorescent tube and having it light up without actually being connected. You can in some circumstances. Nikola Tesla used to demonstrate this. Electromagnetic fields in the air, that's right. I didn't know about that though, because the thing is, currents can be induced in other lines through an electromagnetic field, yeah. That's kind of how an electric motor works, actually. As for putting the lines underground, some derelict land at the end of my street was bought for new housing. Rumour has it that the pylon right over this land was going to be pulled down and the wires buried underground until they reached the next pylon in a row. Needless to say that this never happened. The pylon still stands, no doubt. The buyers of the nearest houses had to be convinced there was no danger from living under its ugly shadow. Well, as I said on BitChute, they could have simply, there's no need to cut and cover things. They could like use a tunnel boring machine to go underneath something without disturbing it. But that's a shame, actually. Yeah, they didn't do that because it's the health reasons, but also the aesthetics. And I actually did put in a text reply to here. And Canet said these wires produce ozone, and that's true. You can actually smell it sometimes. Yeah, because of course electromagnetism can actually ionize the air and produce ozone. Yep, it ionizes the air, and I've actually smelt the smell. It's a very distinct smell of ozone. You get it from photocopiers for the same reason. A smell that comes from a photocopier is ozone caused by the electromagnetic field. I don't know exactly how, but it does. Okay, my interview with Claire. No comments. Apollo detectives. 3 comments. Okay. Israel Diego Rivera says, "Great detective work. Thanks very much, Diego Rivera. I'm glad to see you here on Odyssey." Oh, okay. I've got to put another dot on that. Blue Jetty says, here, they walked on the moon, Nevada, USA. Yeah, it may be Area 51 or something else. Trust nobody, as it says again here. Along with Shelley of the Red, I mean, trust nobody is like a real dedicated commenter on Odyssey. I was listening to recordings made of the Apollo 10 mission, the supposed second trip to the moon, the first test of the LEM in lunar orbit. A couple of times, the voice of NASA, Paul Haney, states that the Capcom has just given the mark for some operation to be carried out 2 seconds early to take into consideration the 2-second delay in transmission because Apollo 10 was so far away. Yet in just about all of the communications, call and response to and from Apollo 10 and Capcom were immediate, with no delay. Oh, that's interesting. It also brings to mind what RDH pointed out regarding the supposed landing of the rovers on Mars, with a 5-minute delay in communications would make it about impossible for the supposed flight engineers to correct any errors in landing. Yet they were all woo-wooing back and backslapping as if everything had been down to them, rather than being down to precise pre-programming of computers on board the lander, and all of it working perfectly. Right, that's interesting. That Apollo 10 thing, if that's true, that's a smoking gun, because you cannot argue with the laws of physics, Captain, as Scotty said. So if there's no delay, if the delay is not appropriate to the speed of light difference, which is 270,000 miles, so it's 180,000 miles per second, so you're looking at you're looking at 4 or 5 seconds round trip. And as for the Mars thing, yeah, I read Richard's book. He wrote his hypothesis down in a book, which is very interesting, and I remember him saying that. And of course, he does it on his show, his TV show as well. So, again, that's another. Again, it's the laws of physics. There's nothing to, some people might say, well, can the scientists do anything about this? We can't get real-time conversations from Mars. Well, no, there's nothing they can do about it. It's special relativity, mate. You can't. Well, I know Hugo Rune will argue with it, but most people don't. Okay, and finally, now we have a Silent Night Watch Party review. And thanks, Trust Nobody. Thanks for that interesting comment. That's really good. I'll let the Apollo Detectives guys know about that. No comments. And finally, Rin Michaelis. No comments. That's Odyssey sorted. Right, I'm going to go over to Rumble now. I'm getting quite tired, actually. This is almost going to be a 2-parter. I didn't expect it to be this long, because it's only been like over 2 weeks. Okay, so here we go then, guys. Alright, this is going to be a bit tricky because I've just been re-uploading some old ones, so I'm going to have to go through the blog. So to get to the right videos, because it's bloody, I've been re-uploading old videos, there's no, right. So, no comments on reply to comment 67. Okay. Silent Night Watch Party introduction. No comments. Pylon hoax. Rumble people. I do get a couple of comments on Rumble. There's one person at the Hobbit or whatever her name is. She often comments. Nothing on Pylon. Claire. No comments. Apollo Detectives. It may be because I've got so many. I've got no comments at all this time. That could be because I've got so many re-uploads. And Silent Night review. No comments. Finally, Rin McCartney. No comments. Right. Okay. So we're going to go back to. I'm not going to go back and recheck YouTube. So here we go for YouTube, and that's going. I'm going to call it a night, which is good because I've been nearly 4 hours. Okay, so there's nothing on the comments, the channel, the actual channel comment list, but I'm going to go to notifications, which is the best way. You always got to go to notifications because very often there will be new comments on the notifications segment. Okay, I've got 6 now. The 6 are not always comments. Some of them are notifications from uploads. Okay, so I don't. Oh right, no one has actually. Nope, Patrick Patel was the last one talking about Games of Thrones on Rin McCartney. That was the last one. I've had no ongoing comments while I've been recording. So well, that's it then. So thank you all of you. Much appreciate all of you for these very interesting comments on this video. That was only just over 2 weeks, longer than I expected. Yeah, I'm having my eye test soon, so I think I'm going to need glasses. So, yep. I will. This is not the last video I'll be doing before Christmas. On Wednesday there's going to be a live stream. Details will be coming soon, so check that out. Of course, I may well do some more videos as well. So I hope to see you again before Christmas. If not, hope you have a very, very happy Christmas, all of you. Thank you very much for all those really interesting comments. Even some of the rude ones were quite good, so quite funny. All thought-provoking, all entertaining, which is what I'm here for. Take care of yourselves, all of you. Season's greetings. Hospital Porters, pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order.